What's up, everybody? Welcome to Action Industries YouTube channel. My name is Paul DiNuzzo. Tonight, I am Darth Paul.
And I'm the guy with the weird European accent, Richard-Erik Jarvi, or Richard Palpatine. And together, we're Class Action. This is a very special episode because we are talking Star Wars.
Again.
And this week, it won't be just us, but a very rare get-together of what we like to call the Sporadic Council.
So introducing first,
hello,
Matt Kenobi.
Hello.
Welcome, Matty Kearns, special guest of the show. And now we have another special guest coming on. You know him, you love him, Darth Billy Belford. What's going on?
This is not the Belford you're looking for.
At last,
you guys' intros were way better than ours, though.
It is true. Together,
we're just better at this than you guys.
The Sporadic Council. Now, what is the Sporadic Council? Let me tell you guys what the Sporadic Council is. About 3 or 4 months ago, the four of us started a little Facebook chat group with the intention of maybe doing a Star Wars podcast. But we realized that with our times and Richard being in Estonia and me working overnights
on another planet.
Another planet. That's right. It's like Tatooine, but a little closer to Tatooine, but not.
Sounds Star Warsy.
From nowhere.
Estonia does sound like a Star Wars planet, doesn't it?
It does.
But anyway, we started talking about doing a Star Wars podcast at some point, maybe, but we realized we have no time to get together usually. So months later, this chat has sat open when he has basically become a haven for every Star Wars meme we can think of. And anytime we want to bitch about something Star Wars, or anytime we want to celebrate Star Wars. But today we have made it work. It's like 3 or 4 months in, we have finally had the first official meeting of the Sporadic Council, and hopefully not the last. But we'll start with one and see where it goes. So,
give us views.
So we
the first of many or the only.
You decide.
So we said that we're talking Star Wars. We didn't actually say what we will be doing with Star Wars. So do you wanna take this so we're like officially correct with our rankings?
Okay. Well, as you know, as you watch Class Action, we've done a couple episodes of Star Wars. 2 weeks ago, we did Revenge of the Sith versus Return of the Jedi as a brief. This week, we reviewed Rise of Skywalker and put the prequel trilogy up against the sequel trilogy. And that was both very fun. But this is a time where we're actually doing no Class Action brief of the week this week. It's not something versus something. Well, it kind of is, but it's not just 2 items. We are going to be releasing a ranking, or each and at least our individual rankings of the theatrically released live action Star Wars films. Now, that's actually you, Mr. William Viviani, love you, but this is no droids, no Clone Wars, no droids, no
Hollywood,
special.
Holiday specials.
No holiday special. All good in our heart. But we're just going to release the list of the theatrically released live action films.
That's right.
Also known as the movies that Belford has watched.
Good call. The ones that all of us have watched probably many times over the years. I know I do at least once a year. Well, usually a watch through. I don't know how.
But yeah, sorry.
That's right. How often do you guys watch the films?
It depends on which ones you're talking about. I didn't get around to watching them all this year. Just with work, I didn't get to do my yearly lead up to a Star Wars film. But Star Wars in general is usually just what I do when I want to watch a movie and I'm bored and I don't know what movie to watch. Empire is probably the one I watch the most. I don't want to say more about the movie because we'll talk about it later. But
it's interesting.
So I keep on my letterbox. I keep a list I've been doing since last year of every movie I watch during the year, and it's crazy to me how for as much as I love Star Wars, I don't watch all the movies. I have not watched Return of the Jedi this year once.
Wow! Even before the AMA.
But this is I watch so many movies just on my own, and because I didn't do my marathon, usually that's what gets them all in. And because I didn't do that, I didn't watch them all. But Star Wars, it's Star Wars and The Office are the 2 things to where it's that's my background noise. All right. When I want something, I watch Star Wars.
Now, what about you, Billy? I'm going to curious about that. I know you're not quite as into the Space Wars as you call them.
The Space Wars, yes. So I've watched all 9 of the, now I guess all 11 of the theatrically released live action movies. Some of them I've watched more than others. I've seen it, Empire Strikes Back, probably about 500 times. The other ones, they vary. I think I'm pretty sure I've seen Attack of the Clones like 3 times in my life. Like, it's just not my jam. I'm not one of those people who will sit down and watch a movie from start to finish. I like to go and watch the scenes that I like the most. Like, I'll just, and I do that a lot. I watch all the the Star Wars scenes that I love the most, and because this is how we take in content nowadays. Isn't true. 15. If it's more than 15 minutes, I'm like, who's got time for that?
Get out of here.
He's got a point. I do the same thing. I think that's why I don't realize until I started doing this that because I watched so many scenes from Jedi that I'm like, wait, I haven't watched the entire movie. No, that's right. I've only watched the lightsaber duel and the talk with Ben and the Sarlacc pit battle. I haven't watched the entire thing. Okay.
Very good point. Very good point. Well, I guess what we're going to do is we're going to rank them from 11 to 1. We'll each give our rankings and probably discuss the movies as we go through. And at the end of the show, I'm going to tabulate our rankings in a point system. It'll be like golf. The lowest score will be our highest achieving victory. And the highest score will be our, not as good Star Wars movie. Let's put it that way. I love all Star Wars. Let me tell you.
Yeah, even if it's ranked 11th, it's still not a movie that's disliked. It's just a movie that's not as much loved.
Right. That's what it's about Star Wars for me. It's obviously escape to childhood, and I can always find something in all these movies that I can love, even a few scenes, even if there's some that are better than others.
I will agree with that even the ones that I have ranked low, there are things that I do love in them. I just don't love the overall package, perhaps.
Ben Bateman, you may know him from this channel, recently said on one of the Star Wars reviews about a movie that there's definitely more awesome than bad in that movie. And that's pretty much every Star Wars movie, I think. There's usually more, or at least the awesome outweighs the bad in every Star Wars movie.
Agreed. So shall we go right to it?
Absolutely.
And then we'll start with number 11, the 11th film on the list. I'll go first, and we'll kind of go in a rotating order. My 11th film is probably a little surprise after what we just talked about. It is Attack of the Clones, Episode 2. My least favorite Star Wars film. Why don't we just go in order, and then we'll talk about them specifically. Billy, what is your number 11?
My number 11 is a little movie called Attack of the Clones.
Okay.
Matthew?
My number 11 is a movie that I don't think anyone ever talks about. That's never causes wars online. It is a little film called The Last Jedi.
Wow. Wow. Okay. That's a hot take right off the bat. We're going to get back to you on that one. You're right back into that one. Okay. So, Jarvi, what about you?
My 11th movie is Solo, A Star Wars Story.
Now that hits
So, since I'm the last one, I'll sort of get into why Solo is my last one. It's not because it's not a great movie. It's because I usually go for the Saga movies before the spin-off movies. But something very interesting has happened with Solo is something you just said, Matthew. The fact that you pop on Empire or something like that when you just want to do a casual watch. For me, I tend to watch Solo now when I just have the time, because I feel like when I'm watching an episodic film, I feel like I should watch all the rest of them as well. So that's like a bigger commitment. But just popping on Solo and just enjoying the fun ride is something is easier to do, and I'm having so much fun with that movie.
Very interesting. Okay. Well, me and Billy will start first on Attack the Clones. My personal reason why it's the lowest film is basically it's the love story. It's hard to get through the love story at times, even though it's quite memeable. It's quite funny to hear, and the whole I hate sand and all that garbage or else. But it's the least rewatchable for me. It's got some great moments in it still. I do love the Obi-Wan versus Jango Fett fight. I do love the last battle when seeing the first time all the Jedi running into battle in Geonosis, but I didn't like it as it gets the droids, so that kind of threw it off. C-3PO's humor is a little much for me during the droid sequences. And
Dex's Diner.
Texas Diner does. The funny thing is, I love Dex. I love the diner. It just does take me out of the film. Like it's American Graffiti in Star Wars, and obviously it's American Graffiti for a reason. But it does take me out a little bit of it. So I don't know, Billy. What do you think about why Attack of the Clones so low for you?
For me, a lot of it has to do with like it's so you leave off episode 1 with my favorite lightsaber fight and the best lightsaber fight. A lot of people think like it's an amazing lightsaber fight, and then you go into and you have Jedi doing awesome things, and then in like episode 2, like yeah, you have all the Jedi running in to fight the droids. None of them do anything cool. They're literally they're like, all right, it could have been anybody with a lightsaber, like, and then you go from Darth Maul, who I thought was awesome, to Count Dooku, who in episode 2 is not great. Like, he's fine. Like, he's much better in the third one. So, like, and then just the romance, the complete lack of chemistry between Hayden Christensen and just about anybody. Like, honestly, like, he's a really good actor. I've liked him in a lot of things, but like, well, not a lot of things, but a few things. In this, for some reason, this movie, he has like no chemistry whatsoever with anybody on screen, which is funny because like behind the scenes, apparently, like he got along great with everybody and like was like well liked and has a really great personality. Just didn't come through in the film. And really good thing for me in Attack of the Clones is getting to see Yoda wield a lightsaber, and that's about it.
Which is both good and bad in ways. A lot of people didn't like that. I loved it, but I actually even loved the fact that they poke fun of it, that after the battle's over, he goes back to the walking cane at that point. But that's, to me, I love ridiculous moments in Star Wars still, so that, to me, made me laugh more than anything else.
It's also, like, really heavily CGI'd, I felt like the first time in Star Wars where, like, the CGI kind of took me out of the movie.
Yeah,
like, for a movie a series that has always been lauded for being like amazing visual effects. Like the visual effects are amazing, but they almost like it just doesn't fit Star Wars. Like it's too clean, it's too polished, it's too like the 1950s.
Something that we discussed yesterday, Paul.
Yeah, we did. It's true. No, it's very true. And this one is the worst one. I'll agree with that too, because Revenge of the Sith has a darkness to it. Phantom Menace kind of still had a little bit of the more practical stuff. This one was very sleek, though. But okay, well, you know what? We're done with we did our version of Attack of the Clones. We got you guys to talk about Attack of the Clones later, what you like, because we're gonna go to see what Matt. Oh, actually, not. Yeah, we're gonna say Matt. Tell us why Last Jedi is in last place for you.
So I feel like last place is a really
It is what it is.
The Last Jedi.
Tell us why you hate The Last Jedi, Matt.
Look, it's obviously because I'm a misogynist. I'm a racist. A woman was the hero of this movie, so right off the bat, let's see, it started at 10, it went down to a -10.
Obviously, that's got to be.
No, look, my relation with the sequel trilogy has been very interesting. I did like this movie the first time I saw it, but then once I owned it and I started to watch it, the cracks that were kind of there the first time I saw it, just because you watch a movie over and over again, like Star Wars, I don't outwardly hate this movie. The reason why it's number 11 for me is this is the Star Wars film that I revisit the least. This is the one that there are not really scenes that I go back to and watch. This is the one that when I'm sitting down and I just want to watch a Star Wars movie, I never go, let me pop in Last Jedi. You know, like I'll watch in the lead up to other stuff. But I don't outwardly go to watch this. And look, for the fans that love this, and I'm sure there are some of them on here, more power to you. I don't walk around like an angry guy on Twitter going like, if you like this movie, you don't understand Star Wars. Because that's not true. It made choices with Luke that I do not like, and that really is a big thing. I love all the stuff on Crate with him, because that's finally when we get Luke back. I just felt like for a lot of the movie, going from Jedi to that it didn't track, and the story they tried to get behind it just didn't feel like Luke to me. And if you loved it, again, more power to you. It just didn't work for me. I will say positive notes on it. From my jacket, Poe Dameron, still the best. This is a replica of his jacket. I still think Poe Dameron is great in the movie. Billy Lord is great as well. Kadell. I'm her fan page on Twitter now. Just gotta toss that in there. I think Daisy Ridley has a lot of great moments. Even if Rey's overall storyline I'm not a fan of, I still think the material she's given to work with, she does really well. Adam Driver, I still think is a great actor in these movies, whether or not I love his character, maybe not. And the movie does have it's filmed very nice. I watched the and the music because it's John Williams. I did watch the version on the Blu-ray where it's just the musical track, and it was great.
That's cool.
So yeah, I don't outwardly hate this movie. I'm not a woman hater. I just hate women in Star Wars. No, this is just the reason why it's low for me is because I just don't revisit it really ever.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense to me. I'll get to our thoughts of Last Jedi later when we get to our point of the rankings.
It's gonna be a lot.
Okay. Number 10, then. We're going to move on to our number 10. For me, this is where I slot Solo. Billy, what do you got for number 10?
I have Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah. Are you trying to hurt us? Oh my God.
Hurting Jarvi is just like a side effect that, pleasant surprise. No.
So, Billy, what's yours?
All right, we're gonna skip that for now. I'm gonna come back. I gotta take a breath. Matt, please save us. Say something. Say anything. What is your number 10?
Force Awakens.
Interesting. Yeah, you told us before that you're not the biggest fan of the movie, so I get it.
All right, then Jarvi for you.
So that's where Attack of the Clones comes in
for you. Okay, yeah. That makes sense to me. Okay, well, what I will say then I'll go back to me now for my version of Solo is I hate that Solo is this low because Solo gets a lot of hate, but I do think that there are enough. It's enough outside the Saga films. I definitely tend to be more of a Saga person overall in my head. That a lot of this not. I even hate to say the word unnecessary because no movie is necessary. And there's a lot of fun in this movie. This is a fun adventure space movie. It's just compared to the mythology that all the other films have, it's a little lacking for me in that. That being said, Alden Ehrenreich is phenomenal. I think he did a great job in a nearly impossible task trying to be Han Solo when Harrison Ford is not there. Donald Glover was great as Lando. I love Woody Harrelson as Beckett. I love the scenes together when Han gets to fly the Falcon for the first time with Chewie. There's a lot of fun episode to it. And having Darth Maul come in, I love that aspect of it as well because it actually was the first time the movies seemed to care about the canon, the rest of the canon that brought in stuff from Clone Wars and things like that. I loved that the movies. I hope they do that more because it needs to be more connected.
Yeah, I feel like I kind of want to chime in because Solo was the last one for me, so I'll just come back to it real quick. And also the fact how many problems the movie had. Yeah. We switched directors, so that's already a pretty difficult thing to overcome. And the fact that we got a fluid movie over at the end. I know Ron Howard maybe went the safe route, but we still got a movie that pretty much had the same tone. And also Alden, there was a lot of talk that he got acting lessons or something like that he wasn't up to the task. Or the movie had a lot of bad rap, but I feel like when it came out, it kind of it overcame all the obstacles.
Right. No, I wholeheartedly agree that it was destined to fail, and to me it didn't. Mm-hmm. But again, here I'm talking about as the 10th film on the list, and that's only because of mythology. And there's some two really bad scenes for me. I hate how Solo got his last name, which was just ridiculous. And even worse to me, honestly, was when Han and Chewie meet, I love the scene when Han and Chewie meet.
Oh, I know where you're going.
The fact that Han starts speaking Wookiee was one of the stupidest things I'd ever seen in my life. I don't mind him
truly
knowing
laughed.
Wookiee, but I'm like, he started going, "Rah, rah." It's already enough of us. Like, it's already enough. You have to suspend disbelief that he understands the Wookiee. that Wookiees actually, that growls can say more than just like 2 or 3 things. But he starts talking, and I'm just like, what the fuck is this?
I think that might be what Phil and Lord Miller came up with. That it seems like that's something from their part, because they went more for a comedic route,
Right?
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's probably, I've heard it was more slapstick, even possibly, but I don't know.
Well, that kind of feels like it.
Well, that's where I put Solo as number 10. Billy, I want to skip you for a minute because I need a little moment. It's only a little moment. Matt, go with your right. Why Force Awakens is there for you?
Look, I was having this conversation on Take 3 Productions, which is a YouTube channel I work with, when we did our review of a movie we'll seemingly talk about later. The sequel trilogy overall hasn't really worked for me. This one was definitely a movie that I got swept up in the hype of it being 10 years since the Star Wars movie. Watched the trailer like 15,000 times. Went to the Thursday night preview screening. I was in. And then I owned it. And I started, as you do with a new Star Wars movie that you get on Blu-ray, you just watch it again and again and again. And then you're like, okay. It is a well-made movie. It does some really cool things. I think this is, for the character of Rey, this is a really great starting point. I think Harrison Ford is fantastic in this movie. Poe Dameron, again, great. I actually really like Finn in this movie. I just
boyfriend.
I'm sorry? Oh, yeah. No, I think John Boyega is very charismatic and stuff like that. Like, I think it works. I think the problem for me is, and I think it's because, and what we'll realize as my rankings go on, is I come from a different generation than a lot of Star Wars fans that I talk to. And I think because of that, the way a lot of people came to this movie was, oh yes, they finally brought Star Wars back. They revitalized it. Whereas I was like, I didn't need any revitalizing. It didn't need anything to begin to make things right, as Max von Sydow would say. And I think because of that, the safeness of this movie brings it down for me. Because when I do watch in the big marathon, I just go, like there's something more there. I watch it more than Last Jedi, so there's that. But again, well-made movie. If it came out and there were no other Star Wars movies, who knows? Might be even higher. But the stuff I like is great. I'm trying to be really PC and kind about this because there is a name I could give this movie that I may not, just to be nice. I'll put it in the chat for all of us.
Okay. And then while Maddie's doing that, why don't we move on to Darth Belford killing me and Jarvi?
So I've watched every theatrically released live-action Star Wars movie in the theater. Typically the first weekend, and then some of them I've seen more than once in the theater. And then I did a rewatch of all of them when The Force Awakens came out. So I watched all of the ones up to that point. I couldn't remember a single thing from either Attack of the Clones or Revenge of the Sith. Like, Attack of the Clones, I kind of remembered some things. I went and rewatched both of those. Actually, I watched all 3 prequel movies a couple days ago to kind of like get it back into my head. I know I've seen Revenge of the Sith. I didn't remember a single thing from it. Like, it felt like it was
then you are lost.
You are the chosen one.
And then also, like, everything that's great about
Revenge of the Sith.
Like, I don't. That's what Revenge of the Sith is for me. It's Godfather Part 3. it's the movie that gets quoted a lot, and all the great quotes come from that movie. But it's not that great a movie. Like it's fun. Like I don't know. There's a lot of like really good stuff in it. Like the last lightsaber fight is fantastic. You know,
the intro is also awesome. The space battle. It's the biggest space battle.
Richard.
It's just like honestly, like I didn't even remember that, and that's like it's this massive space battle. And I was like, it's just not memorable to me. Like I don't know. It's fine. It's good. It's like it's just number 10.
My popcorn.
Nothing spoke to me in that movie. I don't know. Like nothing really like. Also, I feel like anytime that like it felt like it was like trying to make up for a lot of the stuff that happened in the second one, kind of like a more recent Star Wars movie seems to be trying to do. Like, and that almost like shortchanged that movie. Like, it could have been a better movie if it didn't have to like make up for like the
Sifs of the past.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
All right, that's about all I could take from that before I
Charlie
keel
just
over.
muted himself. As he
I keep coughing. I just don't want to
Nice
interrupt.
being on the sporadic council, guys. I'll see myself now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was the rise of the sporadic council. Sorry, guys.
The last sporadic council.
I will say about the sporadic council here, one thing I want the audience to know, we are a very positive group overall. I mean, as far as we're not going to be killing anybody over things. We'll joke around people. But I hate yelling. There's no yelling here. There's no blaming people for having wrong opinions like Billy's right there. I mean, there's no
look. Movies,
we love it. It's movies that are,
and particularly this series affects people in many ways. Everyone enters this movie at a different time.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of people who see different movies. We all came to this movie in our own way. Mm-hmm. And the stuff that works for you may not work for other people, and that's fine. The thing is don't be an asshole. Right. I believe I'll quote a tweet that I made last week or earlier this week. Opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. If you think your asshole is better than someone's, then you need to go home and rethink your life.
That's very true. I totally agree with that. So we're all love here for the most part, even when we give each other shit, because that's just how we show our love, I think, really, to be honest with you. But let's move on, though. We go down to number 9 on our list now. I will start out here, and I'm going to throw mine hat in the ring and say this is where I slot The Last Jedi. Billy?
I put Solo at 9.
Okay. Maddie?
Return of the Jedi.
Wow. Okay.
Unified list is gonna destroy me.
Okay. Richard-Erik.
This is the first time that I've ever aired my my Star Wars ranking.
I guess this is pretty fun.
My number 9 is The Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker. Okay. We each got a different movie. It's the first time we each got a different movie, I think. That's
Can I go first on this one real quick? Because we've already covered Solo a little bit. But before I cover Solo, Richard-Erik Jarvi got up and walked away because I had Revenge of the Sith at number 10. Matt Kearns has Return of the Jedi, Ben Bacon's favorite movie, Ben Bacon from this channel, at number 9, and everybody's just like, cool. All right, guys.
Well, to be fair, I did say, wow, because I'm trying to.
So not cool.
For number 9, I figured out what I'm gonna do for this from now on. I'm just gonna talk about the things that I like about the movie. I don't have to talk about any of the things that are bad. Things I like in Solo. Donald Glover is amazing. He's my
your Obi-Wan. That's
he's my Obi-Wan Kenobi now. Yes, he would actually kick ass as Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's my Lando Calrissian from now on. Also, I love the Wookiee versus the Chewbacca versus Han fight because it's the first time you ever get to see like a Wookiee actually like doing like not just lumbering around and shooting a crossbow, like, which was awesome. And yeah, that's what I like about Solo, and that's about it.
Okay. Richard, why don't you go with you next? I think mine and Maddie's are definitely the more controversial.
The Rise of Skywalker, yeah, number 9. I worked so hard to like this movie more, and honestly, for The Rise of Skywalker, when I first saw the movie, was the 11th on my list. I've seen it 3 times now. When most people try to hate this movie, I'm trying so hard to love this movie, and now I can finally say that I do love the movie. It has a lot of errors in it, but like we said before, this is probably one of the weakest movies, but it's got so much cool Star Wars stuff in it. So for example, I don't know any other Star Wars movie that dwells into the Sith lore as much. This is one of the biggest reasons why I now love the movie. The holocrons, so they call them wayfinders. All right, that's fine. I wish they hadn't, but so we got the Sith temple. Finally, seeing a Sith temple, that was something that was very cool. And well, they brought back Palpatine. That's you can see in my name, I'm a fan of Palpatine. The biggest problem I have with the movie is probably what a lot of people had, is the fact that Rey does say Skywalker at the end. I've made my peace with it. I'll quickly say how I made my peace with it is when Rey's talking about force healing, she's saying that she transfers some of her life energy into another being. Now at the very end, when Kylo saves Rey, he pretty much, Ben saves Rey. He transfers all of his life energy into Rey. So technically, the Skywalker life energy is transferred into Rey as well, which makes it kind of easier for me. I found an excuse how I'm writing this wrong for myself, that she calls herself a Skywalker at the very end. Because for me, I would have been fine if the Rise of Skywalker would have only meant that Ben kind of rose into being a Jedi in the end.
Okay. We'll get to Rise of Skywalker a little bit for me. I'll jump on My Last Jedi, which actually there's a lot of reasons why Maddie had it last. Is similar things. I'm also not a misogynistic, racist, sexist person, nice. But I had my problems with it as well. But my main problem, I want to say, with the whole film is I love Rian Johnson. I think Rian Johnson's a phenomenal filmmaker, and I think he's made a beautiful, amazing film, and I understand why it's the top of a lot of people's lists. I totally get it, because it's a great film. It's low in this list because I don't feel it's a great Skywalker saga film. The problem is, like, everybody praises it. Everybody's getting gig on JJ for retconning The Last Jedi, but no one seems to take Rian Johnson on for a lot of retconning of what The Force Awakens was trying to do or setting up. That's what threw me off a little bit. I am not agreeing with Maddie in that I actually love Luke in this film. I actually like that subverted opinion. That's my own thing. I like the idea that after Vader, after everybody else, and after losing Ben, he's finally like, God damn it, I'm fucking this up. I need to go and chill out for a while. But I do like it, and especially I love it because it gave us that ending on Crate where he does come back and say, yep, I got to be the badass I am, and shows a badass Jedi power. But the problem I have with it is you're in the 8th film of the saga. This is not the time to start subverting the saga. You can't change streams in the last part of the race. It's something. If this was its own film with new characters, its own trilogy, I think I probably would have it really high on my list because I love a lot of things about it. Except for also, by the way, we'll throw in there, I love Canto Bight, the setting, but it was such a useless part of the film. The Finn and Rose thing was just out there for no reason. It did nothing to advance the film, except for, I mean, I guess you could say it helped Finn solidify his need for wanting to be in the Resistance, but it just could have been done in a better way. And I will tackle one of the hot topics of the moment, Kelly Marie Tran. I think she's an amazing actress. I think she's an amazing person. I hate the fact that she was bullied off Twitter. That should not happen. We are an asshole fandom for doing that kind of shit. Yes. Not that we did it.
I agree.
But the fan should not be going down. However, that being said, Rose didn't really hit for me. It wasn't anything.
And there's nothing to do with her as a person. No. Again, I thought when I saw that, I thought it was the same thing when Daisy Ridley got bullied off of Instagram. Just don't do that.
Don't do that.
It's, again, I don't like the character. That doesn't mean if I ever met Kelly Marie Tran, I'd be like, you bitch. I'd be like, oh, it's very nice.
Awesome, the Star Wars actress.
You were in a Star Wars movie.
Tell me about being in Star Wars.
If she asked me about her character, I would be very PC and be like, It worked for a lot of people, Kelly, and that's what you should be happy about.
It's not even just a bad character. I'm just pretty indifferent to her. That's all. It's not a.
Do you know how many Star Wars characters there are, guys?
Yeah.
They can't all be our number ones.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good point.
Oh, I forgot to talk about Babu Frick, one of my favorite Star Wars aliens.
You and my brother.
And
God,
me.
I love him.
I love Babu Freak, voiced by Moaning Myrtle. I love it.
Yes.
But we'll get there. So Last Jedi, for me, that's just where it hits at a lower level. It's beautiful. It's one of those dichotomies for me. It's a beautiful film, just not for me in the Skywalker saga. I love that. So let's let Kearns kill us now.
Oh, God.
And have him eviscerate Return of the Jedi being so.
Oh man, I forgot about this.
All right.
Me too. You had to bring it up again. Oh man.
Oh God. Look, when I was making my rankings,
You're making Ben Bateman cry, by the way, just so you know.
Me too.
You keep saying that name. Who am I supposed to know who this is?
Wow.
Look, I was making my rankings, and I saw how low I put this. It hurt me a bit, but as I think about the movie, and again, rewatchability with this series is the biggest thing for me. This is one that I watch a lot of scenes of, but I don't watch the whole film. I think it's because that intro on Jabba's palace until you got to like the Rancor is cool, and the Sarlacc pit palace is cool. Everything else in the middle, like it's just like, Luke, what was your plan here? Like, what? Like getting like, what if when you gave R2 and 3PO to Jabba, what if he was like, let's just melt them down? Like, what if when Leia got caught, what if instead of being turned into a slave, she got killed? Like, where was your plan? And Lando just sitting back like, oh, this is gonna be fucked up, ain't it? So that whole intro thing.
Let me interject real quick and just say,
Yeah.
if you pull at the threads of a lot of Star Wars plans, you'll find that happens quite a bit.
Yeah, it does.
But go ahead.
You know what the
There
thing
are
is?
plans in Star Wars?
You know what? This is the thing. I'm going to quote from another movie series, but it works totally for Star Wars, which is from Harry Potter Devil House Part 2. Hermione, what's ever the point of planning? We plan, we get there, all hell breaks loose. That's Star Wars in a nutshell as well.
When any of our plans ever worked.
All the Luke stuff in this movie is amazing. From the discussions he has with Yoda and Ben on Dagobah to everything with Vader and the Emperor. It's a lot of the other stuff, I think, as a big Han Solo fan, and I understand Lucas and Kazan were sort of backed into this corner to where Ford didn't want to return. They had sort of written in the Carbonite plot as a, okay, Han gets to be killed off, but we can bring him back if we can. They kind of got him back. But so Han's not, like, he digresses as a character to me a bit. Like, he's not as strong as in Empire or New Hope. I will say, the scene between him and Leia on the bridge is amazing. Like Harrison Ford is my favorite actor of all time. I love that moment when Leia's just had, I'll just talk about that whole bridge scene. Luke talking to Leia, fantastic. The music, when he talks about how if I die, you're going to carry this on, and her, like, not really being able to process it, because that's a lot to throw at a person. And then Han coming in, not understanding any of this. And I honestly, the way Harrison Ford delivers the line, oh, but could you tell Luke? Like, it's so, like, you can say he's being a dick, but you know he's just, like, he loves Leia, and he doesn't know that they're brother and sister. He's still thinking this is a New Hope when there's that love triangle. And so to him, he's just like, I love you, but it's clear you care more about Luke than me. And again, at that end bit, when he's like, when he comes back, I won't get in the way. Like, you're like, God, you know, Han, fuck. Again, just overall, not as great as in the previous films. I don't mind the Ewoks. I love the Ewoks. I love them. So I don't hate that. I just think overall, the movie just, it's really that beginning half hour that kind of brings it down for me to where it's just like, if the movie started on Dagobah, I think I might like a little bit more. Like if it started with all that stuff, because I love the conversations, and I think the thing I love the most is, which is where my stuff with Luke and the Last Jedi is sort of iffy, is the whole thing of Luke's story is Yoda and Ben both tell him, you have to kill Vader to win. Ben even says when Luke says, I can't kill my father, he says, well, the Emperor's won. The whole story is Luke goes with that in mind and doesn't kill his father, and that's what actually saves the day. Like, that whole thing of, like, not doing what you're supposedly supposed to do and fighting with your hate and thinking that killing is going to solve your problems is not. It's love is what's actually going to do it. So I love this movie. It just, I'm sorry, Ben.
All I got out of that was you said Harris is your favorite actor, right? Oh wait, Harrison. I'm sorry.
Harrison Ford.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Did Ed Harris have an Oscar, or both Harrison Ford and Ed Harris Oscar-less?
Oscar-less. It's very wrong. It's very wrong.
Bullshit.
I agree. So let's move on, though, on that note, before we make Billy really mad. How's it go? Number 8 on our list. Let's go with number 8. For me, this is where I slot The Phantom Menace, which is amazing to me that it's so. This is the first time we've mentioned that film, considering a lot of Star Wars fans consider that to be the nadir. But I digress. Let's go. Billy, what do you got for number 9?
So I have
Number 8. Sorry.
Number 8, I have The Rise of Skywalker.
Okay. Maddie?
I have Solo.
Okay. And Richard?
And you and I share number 8, Phantom Menace.
Phantom Menace. Okay. Well, there we go. Well, then Richard and I will have a little conversation first. I will say that the reason why this is where it is to me is that I love this film more now than I did in the beginning. I was so hyped up for this film. This is back in night. I slept overnight to get tickets. This is back in the day where you didn't do anything digitally. It was that's how old I am. And we went to the show, and this is the movie, like Richard said before, I tried to make myself like for a while. I kind of watched. I'm like, loved Darth Maul. Loved the sequences, the final lightsaber reviews. I liked Liam Neeson, and I liked Ewan McGregor. But I understand that there are problems with it. However, I will say that I have come back to it and enjoy a lot of what it did, especially in comparison to Attack of the Clones. This set up a lot of amazing lore and history of the Republic. Seeing this, how the original trilogy is such a dark, not dark, but grimy, lived-in, dirty. This is back when the Republic was grand. And it shows you the
height of the Jedi.
Height of the Jedi. You see the Jedi Council. So much information is thrown at you that it shows George Lucas at his best. Which George Lucas at his best is the best world building, mythology building, lore creator of all time. In my opinion, and he's a great director when it comes to visuals, when it comes to editing, when it comes to just shots. He fails a little bit with scripts, and he fails with directing actors. That's the problem. That's why he falls down as far as directing goes compared to some of the greats. But at the end of the day, I can go back and watch the Darth Maul Obi-Wan Qui-Gon fight every time and be happy as ever. So
one of my most watched fights as well.
So, Richard, what do you think, Richard? What are your thoughts?
I'm actually like the time when I saw is it The Phantom Menace? I always say Phantom Menace.
Yeah, The Phantom Menace.
Yeah, I don't know why. Anyways, first time I saw it, and I grew up with the prequels. So the first movie I did see was The Return of the Jedi, but the prequels are my childhood movies. And when I first saw them, I loved them immediately, but there was no internet back then. Well, it wasn't as accessible to me. So I had no idea the backlash about this movie. I was like, wow, okay, Phantom Menace, that is so cool. Everything is so cool. When I started to realize what people thought of it, I was like, wow, I'm sort of embarrassed. How can I like this movie if everyone hates it? Then I thought it was kind of cool to hate on the prequels. And at some point, I came back in a circle, and I'm like, fuck this. I'm going to be proud that I love these movies, and I don't care what people say. So, like, we're kind of in reverse with this, Paul, because I first started loving it, then I kind of felt embarrassed, and now I'm back to loving them again. But so yeah, the Darth Maul Qui-Gon Obi-Wan fight is something. One of my favorite character in Star Wars is Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan, and there's a big reason. One of the biggest fist bumps in the movie is when Qui-Gon's been killed and Obi-Wan's just standing behind the shield, just going. And then fucking goes all dark side on Maul. I'm not saying he goes full dark side, but he's definitely channeling some dark side stuff right there. So that's one of the biggest fist bumps in all of Star Wars for me. Just this sort of bounce that he does and the way he flies into Darth Maul. And honestly, I don't mind the midichlorians. I thought it was a cool insight into the Jedi world and the Force overall. As I said before, I love how the prequels have shown us how life actually works, where people live. We've seen living quarters. We're seeing like Senate rooms, stuff like that. Everything that's new, it didn't feel weird. The midichlorians didn't feel weird. They were fascinating for me. We're going into almost like medicine in Star Wars, sort of like, on a molecular level.
I never actually. I will throw that in there. I didn't really. The midichlorians didn't bother me. Like it bothered a lot of people hardcore, and I get why. But to me, I didn't bother me as much. I didn't think it really took away from the spiritual aspect of it. To me, I always looked at it as, well, the midichlorians came into some people more than others, and maybe that was the reason why, because they had the spiritual side to them or something. I just didn't bother. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Just a real quick thing on the midichlorians. I'm not going to talk about the movie. I'll save that for when the midichlorians. This has never been confirmed or anything, but something that is confirmed is in the 1980s and 90s, there was the West End Star Wars role-playing game, which expanded the universe. It went into a lot of stuff. George Lucas loved that. He actually gave Timothy Zahn the reference book when he went to make the Thrawn trilogy. So what I think the midichlorians was Lucas, because he liked that expansion, going like, oh, well, that the Force has to be expanded. It can't just be because the books, like, Luke doesn't just fly an X-Wing. He flies like an XP-138 X-Wing. And so I think that might have influenced him when he was writing it, because he enjoyed how in-depth West End games went into the Star Wars universe, that he wanted to go in-depth as well. I wanted to just throw that out there. It's never been confirmed or denied. He did love the role-playing game. That has been confirmed.
Right. Okay. All right. Then who wants to go? Billy, why don't you go with Rise of Skywalker? Why don't you tell us why that is number
All right. Rise of Skywalker.
8 for you.
So this movie, I like to think of like the sequel trilogy movies as like desserts. Like they're all different kind of desserts. Like Force Awakens is like a home cook saw somebody make a really nice cake on TV and found the ingredients list and then made their own cake, and it just didn't kind of turn out the same way. Last Jedi is like someone made this really nice cake that is like really important to the base of the movie, but instead of putting the icing that everybody's used to, they put like some weird creme anglaise on top of, and it's not for everybody. This movie is like it's Dippin' Dots, but you're not eating them by the spoonful. You're literally getting them like a dot at a time, and you never know what flavor those dots are going to be. And then like there's a cherry on top of the movie, but it's a maraschino cherry, not a real cherry, because it's like it looks like a cherry, but it's not really like the cherry you expect. This movie like has so much good stuff in it, but it's like too much good stuff. It's all icing. Like there is no cake to this movie whatsoever. Like I don't even know why were people going places half the time? I'm like, wait, what? Oh, they're going to get that thing. Oh, and here's a new character that we've never met before, even though this is episode 9 of this 9,
How many times have you seen the movie?
I've seen it twice.
Okay. On the third time, you get the big picture. Happens.
It's just like there's just so much going on, and it's just like, and also there's like no stakes to the movie whatsoever. Like all the cool stuff that like should have had stakes had no stakes. Like we had a lot of lightsaber fights between like Ben, well, I guess Kylo Ren and Rey, nobody's gonna die in that. Like we knew they were both gonna live. Like,
but
I mean, the lightsaber fights that they had with each other, we knew neither one of them was gonna die from those. It's like this is just moving. Like this is just taking time. Like at least in The Last Jedi when they have the throne room fight, you're like, well, maybe one of them will die. I don't know. Like when they're fighting each other in Rise of Skywalker, I'm like, okay, this is cool, but there's no stakes. They might as well be like practicing. Like,
okay.
I did like Palpatine. I really enjoyed. It's always beautiful. Like they're always like it's always cool to look at. I like the little what's his name, Boba Frick guy. That guy was cool.
Dio, the new droid.
Why was Dominic Monaghan in this movie? I've been saying this since I watched it both times.
Because we couldn't have Kelly Marie Tran have lines. That's why.
So I couldn't, like, literally, it's weird because I love Dominic Monaghan in like everything he's been in. But he has one of those faces where you see him and you're like, wait, was he in the other two movies too? And I literally had to like go back and look at the cast list. Like, was he in like the background of those movies doing nothing as well? Like, no, he wasn't. So like, what did he have lines in this movie? I don't remember. Like, it was a waste. Also, if you're gonna have Kelly, like, just don't have Kelly Marie Tran in the movie. Like, why bring her in the movie for like no time at all? And then like the one memorable line she gets makes her seem super annoying because she's like berating someone for feeling bad when like everything's going to shit. Like,
be positive.
Yeah, like, and not even like, hey, you need to be positive. Like, let's stay positive. It's like, why can't you be positive? Like, what? Wait, you're being negative about him not being positive. I don't understand.
Okay. All right.
It's just, it was.
So tell us why you didn't like the movie.
Yeah, right. There was just, also feel like there was a lot that this movie didn't have to overcome. It just like set it back because obviously like Carrie Fisher passing away, there's not as much you could do with. If she's alive, then you could do more with her, which I feel like that was probably the plan. Just like, I don't know. Also, there was like unresolved things in the movie. Like, so Finn has the whole like "I'll tell you later" thing to Rey, and we never gets paid off. Nothing gets paid off in the movie. Like, we get no like resolution of so many different things. The one thing that was literally the most gut wrenching thing maybe in the history of Star Wars was Chewie's reaction to Leia's death. That was, oh my god,
powerful moment.
That was the cake of that movie. That was the emotional, like, it was earned, it paid off, like, it was perfect.
Yeah. That was good. All right, Maddie, tell us your take on Solo.
Yeah, so this is a movie that I have a really interesting relationship, which is completely flipped from the sequels. I saw this movie and I hated it. Like, I was just like, oh, this movie is terrible. That's still how he got his last name is horrible and all this. And I didn't want to watch it again. And then it came out on Netflix. And I went,
you talked to Case, didn't you?
Who?
You talked to Case, didn't you?
No, I don't know who you're talking about. But no. So I watched it on Netflix. I was like, just, I'll give it. It's on Netflix. I'm not really doing anything, and I liked it a little bit more. But then a weird thing happened, which is that week I kept thinking about the movie, and so I watched it again. I watched it twice in 1 week, and it was on that third viewing where I was like, it hit me, and I was like, holy crap! Like, this movie's not super great, but the stuff that I like has now sort of overcome the stuff that I don't. And again, rewatchability. This is one of the Star Wars movies very similar to Jarvi, to where it's just like when I just want to relax, I put on Solo. I like the love story between Han and Kira. I like the fact that it's not like Han and Leia. I like that they had this thing when they were teenagers and now they're back again, but she's gone in a completely different way, but he just can't realize that. I like Beckett and Han's relationship. I think that's great. I think that kind of sets up who Han as a dad is in the sequel trilogy, that the sequel trilogy never wanted to talk about, which is like, yeah, well, if Beckett was Han's father, we could kind of see why shit with Ben Solo happened. Overall, I think it's a fun adventure film, and it ranks number 8 for me just because it is a Star Wars film that I watch a lot.
Good enough. All right, let's keep this going here. Number 7 now. Now here's where we reach the middle numbers for me. Is the place where these movies tend to flip a lot. I mean, I could do a rankings list tomorrow, and I might be different. Some of them say the bottom will say the bottom, the top will say the top. The middle ones they flip around a lot. So actually, during our talk here, this actually flipped around twice before. I actually had one here. I'm kind of pulling an audible. Number 7 for me is going to be Rogue One.
I was just about to say, I'm so glad Rogue One hasn't been on any list yet.
And here's why. I do love the film. There's a lot to love about the film, but wait, I'm sorry. Let me digress. Billy, what do you got first?
This is where I put the Phantom Menace.
Okay. Maddie?
Attack of the Clones.
Okay. And Jarvi?
The Last Jedi.
Okay. Now I'll go talk about Rogue One. I love Rogue One, and it does go higher unless it goes as high as 5 sometimes 4. But the only problem I have with the film generally is that the characters aren't given enough space to breathe. Jyn is kind of she's a good Felicity Jones is a great actress, and this is partially the problems that came out at the same time as the sequel trilogy. But you have Rey on one side, then you have Jyn on the other side. It was a 3-letter name, and it just seemed almost replace it like it was a replacement, and almost like they were trying to fool Star Wars fans and going, "This is the next Star Wars film. See, it's the female with 3-letter name."
And she's British.
Exactly. So I wasn't a huge fan of her. I mean, I like the character, but I don't know. She didn't make it for me a lot. I loved Sheridan Bays, but I didn't think we got enough of them. Cassian Andor has potential. Everybody seemed to have potential. That to me never was really solidified. Now, that being said, the final act is one of my favorite acts in Star Wars saga entirely. I love we finally get a dark, gritty war movement, and not even counting the freaking the Vader scene is all over the place. When that happens, because Vader is Vader just slices and dices like thing. That's what it is.
I don't have it with me right now.
Vader, it's a great entry to you finally get to see Vader like in his prime kicking ass and taking names, or not even taking names, just kicking ass. But the whole battle sequence is really cool. So we don't get it. I love the aspect of having the X-Wing pilots from A New Hope being restored in the footage there a little bit, and having Saw Gerrera in it again adds to the canon. Having Leia in there is a nice little touch to move on to go right so smoothly into A New Hope. But at the end of the day, the characters themselves, outside of, I'd say, Droid K2SO, who I loved and was just perfect comic relief for the movie, and Ben Mendelsohn's character Krennic, the rest were just, I don't want to say forgettable, but it's just they're not as well developed as I'd like them to be. So that's where I am with Rogue One at this point. So we'll move over to you, Billy. You can talk about the Phantom Menace for you.
The Phantom Menace, honestly, has it's because of the quality of the lightsaber fight at the end. Like it's literally like it's my favorite thing in Star Wars. It's literally like the coolest thing. It has the coolest villain. It has 2 of the coolest Jedis. One of them gets killed, so it has stakes. The only thing that I kind of don't like is that Darth Maul gets killed. I wish he'd lived on with the next 2 movies.
Does he though?
Right? Yes. Right. Well, or so we thought.
But the twist.
And then also, I really like the pod racing scene. Like I know, a lot of people
Me too.
are not as up on that as it used to be. I have to mute Jake Lloyd. Not Jake Lloyd. I have to mute the character that he is portraying. Like it's too like a lot of it's too woo and like yeah, like that's much. But visually, it's amazing. Like it's so cool. Like I like kind of like the intrigue too at the beginning where they first meet Queen Amidala and you don't know who's what and who's all that. Like that was cool. The first time you see Darth Maul fly in on like the speeder and then do a backflip off of it, and that's like, wait, we can do this in a Star Wars movie, like where like they're doing these crazy like stunt fight sequences. Where did this come from? Like, so yeah, that's why that's the rest of it is like kind of. I'm not the biggest fan of midichlorians, but I can take or leave them. It's not like I like this ruined Star Wars.
Okay.
But yeah,
right.
I also like the underwater scene. Is it in Phantom Menace where they go to underwater to
Gungan City?
That was cool. I like that whole sequence. Anytime stuff's underwater freaks me out. So yeah.
I will want to throw in there before I already talked about the Phantom Menace, but I wanted to throw in one more little snippet. I also love the fact that Phantom Menace really influenced Black Panther and Avengers in terms of if you ever watched the Wakanda battle sequence. There's like these purple electric shields. There's like a force field and everything else going on. I watched like, why? I watched the Phantom Menace again here at this point. Just saying.
As Marvel ripped off Phantom Menace. There you go.
And people were like, what? Phantom Menace? But even Black Panther.
Now we have to find out which one was Jar Jar.
Exactly.
Well, I just wanted to say no one's mentioned Jar Jar as of yet, so I'm like, usually people go off on Jar Jar. No one said anything about him.
I will say really quick that Jar Jar, if you get past the first like 10 minutes of Jar Jar in the Phantom Menace, like the first 10, 15 minutes where he's really super like in your face, to me it just he's fine. He's a kid's character.
That's exactly it. I was a kid when I saw it, and it didn't bother me at all. I was like, "That's a fun character."
Or Ahmad Best.
I love Ahmad Best.
That tweet that he put out like made me cry.
Yeah, he went through some time.
Look, look. If you hate Jar Jar, that's fine. The characters in the movie hate him too. Don't believe me? One of Qui-Gon's first lines to him is, "The ability to speak does not make you intelligent. Now get out of here."
Right.
Okay.
It's supposed to be that way. So I will not hate on Jar Jar. That's it. I mean, I don't want to see him come back or do a lot of or anything else, but he's fine.
I'm trying to only say the things that I like.
Being positive. There you go. That's what we're doing. All right, then, Maddie, why don't you pontificate on Attack of the Clones?
Yeah, so I feel like I should just link my second look episode on this movie. That's where you can find all my thoughts.
Cheap plug.
Yeah, that's all I am. No, I think that the Attack of the Clones is a movie where it's like I recognize the problems. Believe me, I've watched the Blinket reviews. I've listened to what you guys have said and many others, but it's that weird thing to where it's like, no matter how many of those things are in my head, every time I go to watch this movie, I just enjoy it. Like, it's just a fun adventure to me. I think because as a kid, I was always fascinated with like old school romances, you know, King Arthur and Guinevere, or, you know, Robin and Maid Marian, that like Padme and Anakin's relationship is dealt with in that way. It's not really important that they have chemistry. It's just more interesting with what the story is of a love story. And, you know, having a senator and a Jedi who's not supposed to love, like, that is an interesting story. It's something you would see in, you know, an Excalibur type story, like a knight can't fall in love with the queen or something like that. That's stories that have been told for years. Yeah, the Anakin works for me in this movie. I know a lot of people hate Hayden Christensen, but I think this was my first Star Wars movie in theater. The prequels were my originals. They were the movies that I saw and then waited frothing at the mouth for 3 years for the next one and thinking, what's going to happen? I think because of that, like, I never had an embarrassment for liking the prequels, because everyone in my generation liked the prequels because it was our Star Wars. And I think I just sort of, even growing up and becoming friends with guys like you who are older than me, and knowing your reactions to the movies, I've never been embarrassed. I'm still not. I like this movie a lot.
Good.
The Genos and Arena battle is freaking sweet.
Mhm.
And I like the fight with Anakin and Obi-Wan versus Dooku more than Yoda one.
I just realized when the time got to me to talk about Attack of the Clones, we skipped me.
Did we?
Yeah, but that's fine, because honestly, Kearns just said everything I wanted to say about the movie. Truly,
Okay.
this was beautiful.
Sorry. Just so wanted to push forward to find out. All right, my bad. I apologize. Okay, well then, talk to us about The Last Jedi then, since you didn't get to talk about Attack of the Clones. We'll talk about The Last Jedi.
Oh, thank you. So, first off, I feel like The Last Jedi is the most complete Star Wars saga movie on its own. I feel like it has a beginning, has a middle, has an end. It works as a separate movie if we just wanted to have a movie that isn't sort of like build up until the last one and then everything happens. This, like Snoke, we see what happens to Snoke. That pretty much is wrapped up. We wrap up what's the Chrome Dome friggin' Phasma. We end that storyline. I know it's Rian Johnson pretty much saying fuck you to JJ, and then JJ afterwards saying fuck you to Ryan. But he knows. I'm not sure if he knew that that was his only movie, but it feels like he just wants to make one complete movie on its own that stands on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just say real quick, one of my favorite moments in Star Wars is the throne room fight, and that's one of the scenes that I watched the most of out of. Well, probably Anakin versus Obi-Wan is what I watch more, but this is a close second.
It is a good battle. It's a good fight.
Yeah. And the Luke stuff, I'm a fan of. I like that he's a hermit like that. And then he comes back and redeems himself. I also like the fact that he projects himself, which is a cool force power that we see. So yeah, in interest of time, that's where I'll leave this.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's move on to number 6. Number 6. This is another one for me that jumps around a lot. But this is where I'm going to slow out The Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
And Billy?
This is where I have The Force Awakens.
Oh, look at that. Maddie?
This is where I have The Rise of Skywalker.
Okay. And Jarvi?
Just calm your nerves. Star Wars.
I feel like Ron Burgundy. I'm not mad. I'm just impressed.
You didn't finish your statements.
Yeah, Star Wars.
Yeah.
Star Wars. That's Star Wars. A New Hope.
Oh, thank you. Finally, if you don't put an episode title, then it just.
I like calling it Star Wars. I don't know. It's sort of like old school.
You like to be
That's
hipster.
what the title is.
You
Star
and your
Wars.
beanie.
It's a Star War.
Space Battles, what it's called.
Oh, God.
Can we get Jarvi's little terribleness over with of why he has, opinion over with?
I think we should. Let's do this now. Let's rip the Band-Aid off while we're all here and already in that mode. Go ahead, Jarvi. Tell us your wrong opinions here.
I love
go ahead
this
and
movie.
Can I ask a question before Jarvi starts?
Yep.
Are you doing the original cut? Because there's 14 different cuts of this movie.
Good call.
Are we doing all of them?
Whatever you want to do, Billy. But that's a good question.
So
for you, is this
There's not one problem with this movie. There's nothing for me to nitpick. I love this movie. I just feel like the movies that are above it do something more that affect me more. This is honestly I'd say this is the most flawless Star Wars movie. For me, I don't have anything bad to say about it. Everything works. But
5 movies work.
We'll get to the movies that are above
okay.
it.
All right. Well, then we'll get that.
Yeah.
Okay. Maddie, since Billy and I had The Force Awakens, why don't we hit you next with where you Rise of Skywalker?
So I think the reason why this ranks so high for me is, and these guys can all attest to this, I really just didn't get into the hype for this movie. The lead up to it, I didn't do a watch along. I didn't I think it's just because of my feelings on the previous 2 entries and just where I am in my life. I just went into this movie hey, it's a new Star Wars movie. And I think because of that, I didn't have that hype like I had with the other 2. So I just got to see it as a movie. And I was like, oh my God, Star Wars. Like, I just got to see it. I don't know why. I just had a panic attack.
Like Boss Nass there, actually, for a second.
I just got to see it as a movie. And I think I feel the same way about this movie as 10 years ago, or over 10 years at this point, when I saw Revenge of the Sith when I was 7. Is this movie perfect? No. Oh, God, no. But the things that work and the stories of these characters and the heart that this movie has hit me in such a good way that I will gladly overlook the things that don't work. And I feel like the music and the Emperor and just everything just worked for me in this movie, and I loved the ending. I think that her saying that she's a Skywalker is, you start with this character who is, I don't know, she's even just right. Like, she's looking for this family. That's her whole thing. She's looking, and at the end, she's found it. And it's the Skywalkers. It is Luke and Leia and Han and Ben. That is her family, and that's the name that she wants to carry on with. And I like that. I can understand why people don't, but for me, it worked, and I just am so happy because I don't want to not like the sequels. So I'm so happy that the last one really worked so well for me. And yeah, Palpatine was creepy and scary, and that end bit with the spirits talking to her, yes, I would have loved it if we actually got to see them. But given the fact that some of the people that speak, we don't know if they learned how to be Force ghosts, it makes sense, but just hearing Anakin and Qui-Gon talking to her, just I cried. And that scene between Han and Ben is my favorite scene in the movie. It is so perfect. Harrison Ford and Adam Driver play it so perfectly. So that's, as Forrest Gump would say, that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. So then Billy and I will have to delve into the Force Awakens here. Billy, you want to go first?
No, you can go first.
Okay.
Kind of already.
Okay.
I'll go first, actually. So, like I said,
you go first. No, I won't.
Like I said, when I was talking about the Rise of Skywalker, what I feel about the Force Awakens is it's like somebody watching a chef make a cake on TV, and and that cake is super good, and then they get all the ingredients from that cake, and they make it, and it's just not quite. It resembles the old cake, and it's got all the same things as the old cake. And it feels like the old cake. It's just something's just not quite there. It's funny because I didn't really get the whole this is just A New Hope, or not A New Hope redone when I first watched it. And then I started reading it, and then I rewatched it, and I was like, I guess I get that. And then the more I watch it, I'm like, okay, it's not a shot for shot remake like some people like to claim it is, and but there's a lot of things I like in it so much. I like we didn't know who was going to be Force sensitive, and we didn't know who was going to be the one to take up the mantle of the Jedi. I really liked Finn in that movie. I thought that was Finn's movie. I thought he was great in that movie. Poe, being introduced to Poe was amazing in that movie. He kind of that's the Finn and Poe movie. That's them at their best is in that movie, and I really like it. I like all the Luke stuff. Oh no, Luke's not in that movie till the end. I like all the Chewie and Han stuff. I really like. I didn't like Han's death in the sense that I liked seeing him die, but I felt it was earned. It fit the movie. I felt it fit the character. It was perfect for the character. it makes you immediately, all right, well, he's super evil. He just killed his dad. I wish they hadn't taken the mask off of Kylo Ren. I feel like he should have gone the whole first movie without taking the mask off, because then you're like, is he like, messed up like Vader? Like, what's going on with this guy? Like, that's the one thing I didn't necessarily like, but everything else in that movie I really like. It's all stuff we've seen before for the most part, except for killing your dad. Normally in Star Wars, you don't kill your dad.
It's true.
This
You
one
can
you
chop
do.
your dad's hand off, but you don't.
that's about it. And that was fair because your dad already chopped your hand off, so it was just like,
And it's an eye for an eye situation.
An arm for an arm, hand for hand.
hand for hand.
All right. I gotta say, this is the word. This is a very divisive movie in myself as far as this goes. There's parts I love, parts I hate, which is why I go back and forth on it. I agree for the most part about the it is very much a New Hope retread to a degree, not shot for shot, but there's a lot of the same beats hit. I forgive that because I feel like Abrams. I feel like Abrams felt like he had to course correct a little bit from the prequels. Prequels were so divisive. He wanted just to people to go, look, this is Star Wars. This is going to be a Star Wars you know and love from like the original trilogy. You're going to try to hit those marks again, to try to get the fan base back completely on its side again. It's funny how a couple of years later now it's probably worse than it ever was as far as it was good or not. But at the time, I got to tell you, we thought Revenge of the Sith was the last bit. I mean, that first trailer, or not the first trailer, the second trailer, when we finally see Han and Chewie go on board the Falcon and Chewie were home.
I remember that
I remember
moment.
seeing that. I was like crying like a little baby. Like my hair was standing in my arms. I felt like I was like 6 years old again. I was like, this is what I want, a fucking Star Wars. I'm seeing Han Solo and Chewbacca, the Millennium Falcon. We got Leia. We got 3PO and R. It was back being in that universe again, and that much I loved. And so I was all in for the nostalgia aspects of it.
Do you mind if I just interject real quick before my girlfriend gets home? The first time when I saw the trailer for The Force Awakens, the part where Chewie were home, I had a one-night stand over at my place. I wasn't with my girlfriend then. And I started to watch it right at that moment when we came back to my place. And I was like, oh, shit, this just dropped. And I put it on, and I just cried in front of this girl.
That's commitment right there.
I can't tell this story later because she's going to be home any minute.
Good enough. I get it in now. I get it.
And
I get it.
you know what that girl said? She said, "Surprised to be sure, but welcome."
That's why. That's why it's a one night stand, probably, maybe. But regardless, I will say the problem I had with this film and with the whole sequel trilogy is the fact that when you tell a story in the universe, when you tell a story, it's like a common. The basic story principles is you tell the most important story of what's happening in that universe. The most important story that happened in that Star Wars galaxy far, far away was the rise, fall, and redemption of Anakin Skywalker. So after that's over, after we have the happy ending, Return of the Jedi, anything else that happens later on is going to be a secondary. It's going to feel a little bit secondary. So I had a hard time catching up to the fact that, yeah, this is great, but like this was already a happy ending. Now it's a little bit sluggish to kind of get back into that feel. I don't feel we ever really truly got back into that feel, even with the aspect of the sequel trilogy that I do like. So The Force Awakens almost felt like this is the greatest hits of a band, like almost like a reunion of the band that retired. This is the greatest. They go back on tour and they're going to play the hits for you, so you can love it. Just not as much as the original trilogy, but I do love a lot of it.
You know what it feels like? It feels like Queen now with Adam Lambert, where it's like you sound like the original Queen, but you're not quite. There's an element missing, a very important element.
I've seen a reference Paul can get behind.
I can absolutely, and I love Queen and Adam Lambert. I've been to like 3 or 4 concerts, and I've watched the show. It's great. I love going. I get to see Brian May and Roger Taylor rocking out in their 70s, and I hear Roger Taylor's backing vocals, and I'm like, this is awesome. This is awesome.
Is that the Chewie and Han in this analogy?
That's what it is. Well, Brian's got the hair. Brian May's got that long hair. It don't look like Chewbacca.
Yeah.
But it does miss a little that something, which is to me Anakin. But overall, I digress. It could fall, it could rise again. For right now, I will keep it at 6. Okay. So then I guess that we're gonna move on to number 5, right? There we are.
Yep.
Okay, number 5. This is where I finally slot Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, wow. That's pretty high.
It is. I haven't said it yet, though. But I'll tell you why in a little bit. Billy.
This is where I have Rogue One.
Okay. Maddie.
This is where I have Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, okay. Jarvi.
Rogue One as well.
Rogue One. Okay. Well, I guess I should probably go first with the Rise of Skywalker, but the reason why this might have a lot to do with recency bias. There's another one which I could see dropping as low as 7, depending on how it is. But I loved a lot of this film. To me, it did the most. What I said before about Force Awakens not having a lot of Star Wars moments compared to the original trilogy. Actually, you know what? Let me sneak back because this is important. Going after the Force Awakens, the one part of the Force Awakens is when Rey catches the lightsaber and the John Williams music plays, and they have that little lightsaber battle. That to me felt probably more like a Star Wars moment than anything else in the sequel trilogy. That really felt like it was a good moment. Rise of Skywalker has a few moments that are close to that, a few more moments than that. So that's why I think I rank it a little higher than Force Awakens for me. Like we said before, the death of Leia with Chewie's reaction, so earned. And Maddie mentioned the Han Solo scene with Ben when Ben turns. That worked for me. I love seeing Han Solo, seeing Harrison Ford. I will note that I wished only one, as much as I love that scene, I wanted to see the Force Ghost of Anakin Skywalker there. The reason why it helps tie the entire saga together, and it fit with both the trilogy and the saga, because in my opinion, I had this idea in my head where Hayden Christensen would say there's Anakin Skywalker and say, Ben, you've been following in my footsteps your entire life. You've been nothing. All you want to do is follow in my footsteps, but you seem to have forgotten my footsteps return to the light. And so can you.
I didn't want to say it when it was my turn because I knew that was your thing. I love this. I love this so much.
I thought of that. I thought that would have been a great moment, even more so than Han to me, but I digress. The whole ending act with the final battle, I felt that was earned enough for me. When Lando shows up with everybody, I fist pumped. It was kind of like the end game on your left moment for me. Avengers Assemble also on Lando's there. We got more ships. We got more of us. Even Lando say, "You're not as fast as this ship, baby." I love that too. But the best part was Ben being Ben again. It made me wish that we had more time with Ben Solo instead of Kylo Ren. The lightsaber catch, the Han Solo smirk as he fights off the Knights of Ren, and then at the end though, the end part with the Jedi speaking to Rey. I guess that whole thing about this whole thing, I was a sucker for completing the saga, not just the original trilogy, not just the sequel trilogy. Let's get the whole fucking saga in there, and you have Anakin's voice, you have Mace Windu, you have Qui-Gon Jinn, you bring in Ahsoka, you bring in Kanan from Rebels. Everything about that just felt like, okay, this is the epic moment of the end we wanted. This is that it gets to that. Did it have stumbles getting there? Did it kind of fall as it got off the mountain a little bit? Is it a lot of conveniences, a lot of plot device? Sure, it is. It's a fast-paced movie. There's a whole lot of movie to get through, but the ending worked for me, and I liked that Ben died. I thought it was a nice little touch. It kind of echoed Anakin passing, and I loved Rey choosing Skywalker. I've got to that point where I do like Rey choosing the name of Skywalker, because to me, Rey, it was all about, this journey was about Rey finding out who she was, and then it didn't matter who she was. It's because she's going to choose who she's going to be. Doesn't matter if she's a Palpatine. She's choosing to be a Skywalker. So that's my take on that. Will it go? Will it fall? Will it rise? Will the Skywalker rise? I don't know at this point. There's definitely some recency bias, but right now I'm going to put it at number 5. Maddie, let's jump to you, since Billy and Jarvi both have Rogue One here. Let's see what you got to say about Revenge of the Sith.
So Revenge of the Sith is a movie I've always liked since I was 7. I saw it the first time on May 18th, 2005. It has sort of, I don't know, it's a movie that I've always liked, but it has been like, there's been some times where it's like, I watch it a lot, and then I just don't watch it. Recently, however, I work on a show on Take 3 Productions, and I did an episode on this, and revisiting the film for that sort of bumped it up for me. I sort of, really sort of looked in depth and went, oh wow, there are a lot of great things in this movie. The reason why it's number 5 is simply similar to I don't even. You've been saying so many things, I'm not even sure. I think actually it was something Richard just said to where it's like, I love this movie. It's just the four I have above it, I just love more. I think Anakin's story is great in this. I think Palpatine finally, sort of after the last two movies of playing in the shadows, finally coming out and just being, does he have some silly moments? Sure, but he's great all throughout. And I love the ending of this movie. I love that Lucas understood that this is part 3 of a, at the time, 6-part saga. So while you are, yes, ending this trilogy on a somber note, it's okay because A New Hope will rise. And then that final scene on Tatooine is my favorite ending of any Star Wars movie. I think it's perfectly kind of somber, but with that great Star Wars light of, the twin suns and this baby that will become the hope of the galaxy. And I think it's a great movie. Just love the 4 above it more.
Fair enough. Billy and Richard, Rogue One. Billy, why don't you go first?
So Rogue One is literally as good as it possibly could be. Like, there's no way that movie could be any better. The only thing that movie suffers from is that we knew where that story was going to end, and we knew it wasn't going to end good for basically anybody involved. So, but the fact that we knew where it was going, we thought we knew the story, and the way that they shaped that story like so perfectly, beat for beat. I love every character in that movie. I love the relationships of all the people in the movie. I love Ben Mendelsohn. He's the new I can never remember the guy's name. Is it Grand Moff Tarkin? Is that the
Tarkin?
Yep.
Yeah, he's the new Tarkin. That's like, he's that like villainous Star Wars character who doesn't rely on the Force and doesn't rely on, superpowers. He's just villainous, and his evil is almost like a superpower. It's what I thought they were trying to go with like Hux in the new ones, but didn't.
But with Pride, I think Pride and Rise of Skywalker. I did like.
Yeah, but we didn't get him until like the very end. Like, I was like, who is this guy again?
Fair enough.
And if we could have gotten that with him. Also, the visual of Alderaan just getting, or not Alderaan. What's the planet?
Jeddah.
Yeah, that's like, we knew like Alderaan blew up in A New Hope. We don't know what happened.
Right.
We see what happens to a planet when the Star Destroyer blows it up. It's so cool. I love everything about that movie. Again, the only thing it suffers from is that it, like, we knew what was going to happen. Like, there was they really weren't. There wasn't anything else they could do. They did everything they possibly could.
Yeah,
and we got Vader at the ending.
Right. Okay. All right, Jarvi, what do you got? Anything to add to that?
Sorry, I think I had some lag issues for a second. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you fine.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. What you just said, that we knew the ending, that made all the character interactions so much more rewarding. Sort of, you knew that it was going to end. So every moment that the characters had with each other, you sort of took it in more. And I gotta say, some of the, I think I would almost say one of the best droids in Star Wars movies ever is K2.
I like it too.
His K2's death is one of the most emotional moments that I've had in Star Wars. I cried. Overall, the tone of the movie, I was a bit hesitant. They're going to go. Was it PG-13? The rating?
Yeah, I believe.
Yeah. It's definitely the darkest and the most grittiest Star Wars movie, but it worked. It worked like it's like a heist movie, and it worked. And I especially now I feel like I love Diego Luna's character maybe even the most in the movie, because we're getting a spin-off series with him.
Yep.
And I had no idea how much I wanted it until we talked about it. Me and Paul, we talked about it on Class Action, an unaired episode, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we didn't hear that one actually.
Yeah. and also, and I gotta say, Baze and Chert, the fact that they incorporated, we were told that there was going to be no Force powers, no Jedis. They pretty much held to that, but we got hints of it, and the way he goes, I'm one with the Force is with me. His ending, and the way he fights, it's like an action movie in its own way.
I also throw it in there just to add that I like the fact that it was a way that we got to expand on the religion of the Jedi, religion of the Force, in a different fashion than the Jedi had been. So you get to see a different side of different things. So I did like that a lot too.
Yep, and it opened the window to extended lore as well. We got Catalyst. It's a pretty good book. I enjoyed it, and I hope more come in that sense. So yeah, this is number 5 for me. I feel like this is so high. It started off way lower, but this movie is warming on me more and more every year. And it's also one of the movies that I just pop on when I feel like I just want to watch a Star Wars movie without watching like a whole lot of it.
I will also add a fun
Star Wars movie. Like, it doesn't rely on anything before it as far as the like character development, and when it's over, it's over. So
yep.
I do want to throw in there that Rogue One and Force Awakens are the ones that swap back and forth with me so much that's the ones I go back and forth on a lot. And Rogue One was 6th at one point, so I'm right up there with you guys. I'm not that far below. I like Rogue One quite a bit, but Force Awakens had Han Solo. I think that's what brings me back to Force Awakens. But okay, so we're good with number 5. Let's go with our number 4. We're hitting the top now, guys. And for me, I will say my top 4 do not change. Sometimes they might tweak and might do 2 and 3 might switch, but like overall, the top 4, that's the line. This is the line. This is the top tier for me. Number 4 is Return of the Jedi for me. Billy?
Number 4 is Return of the Jedi for me.
Okay. Jarvi?
The Force Awakens.
Maddie?
The Phantom Menace.
Phantom Menace. Wow, so high. I love it. I love it. No, I do love it. So okay. Billy and I had Return of the Jedi, so why don't why don't you go, Maddie, and go with the Phantom Menace? Why is this so high for you compared to everything else?
This is quite possibly the single most important film I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
I say that to people and they go, really, the Phantom Menace? What people have to understand is Star Wars is my favorite series of films. It is the thing that entertained me as a kid, inspired me as a teenager, and it is still inspiring and entertaining me as a 22-year-old. If I didn't see the Phantom Menace at the age I was, I don't know if I ever would have gotten into Star Wars. And if I never got into Star Wars, as silly as it sounds to hold your life so much to a series of films, I don't think I would be here talking to you guys. My life, if I never saw Star Wars, is so vastly different because it just, from the day I saw it, it became so ingrained in me. I watched that VHS tape over and over and over again. I think because of that, Paul talked about with Rise of Skywalker recency bias. You could call this nostalgia, and you're not wrong. But I can't remove that from, I can't remove it. We actually, me, Paul, and Billy actually watched this movie together at the last Schmuckhound event. We did. It was just one of those fun things. I love the story of this movie. I love that it's a story about sort of like this war sort of like slowly building sort of behind the scenes with Palpatine and everything he's doing, and sort of, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan they don't quite know, like they're trying to just do their job and they don't realize they're playing to this hand. You have the whole Naboo thing, and then you have this story of Qui-Gon finding this little boy that he just feels is the chosen one, even though no one else does. And you build to that third act, which might be my favorite third act in a Star Wars movie. The Battle of Naboo is just so grand. You have the Gungans versus the droids, and then you get the best lightsaber duel ever. And then you get Padme, and you get Anakin and all that stuff. And then you end with this Qui-Gon's death is my favorite death in Star Wars. And I think it's so... You feel for Obi-Wan with this mentor figure that is now gone. This guiding person who, throughout the entire... From the first scene, focus on the mission, like all that. And that's gone. For Anakin, this father figure for a kid who never had a father. He just lost that. And this hero of the Naboo people like Padme. And that funeral is so powerful to me. And then you end with the celebration, and you get this sense of like, everything's good now. But with that great shot of Palpatine and the music at Qui-Gon's funeral, you're like, things are good now, but darker stuff is coming. We're going to celebrate now, but we know things are going to get worse from here. This is just a movie that I love to rewatch over and over again. I understand the problems with it, but I will never hate this movie. So yeah, Phantom Menace.
Two things I want to say.
Duel of the Fates is in the Phantom Menace.
Very true.
The best song in Star Wars.
Actually, technically, it's in all three of the prequels.
But
that's when we need it first. Is the Phantom Menace.
Two things I will say is it's unfortunate that Rey wasn't around on the Battle of Naboo, because then Qui-Gon would have lived, because he could have just healed that right up.
100%. Yeah.
See, I can make fun of things that I like. I can make fun of things even just what I like. And second, and I will also say that I also love the music aspect. Speaking of Duel of Fates, the music of the celebration. Some people don't notice this, but a lot of people I notice right away. It's the Emperor's dark theme, but it's just done happy on Naboo. If you listen back to the theme, it's like
I think it's intentional.
It's completely
never noticed that one before.
Because it's that what I just said. It's that sense of like we're celebrating now, but like he's in the background.
Yep.
Slowly building. Like he's even at the happiest times, like he's there building this thing.
So I just want to throw that out there. I love that aspect. It's a little trivia for me.
And one really cool thing that we didn't mention is when the toxins are pumped into the room and they go just like toxic, and their lightsabers just light up when they're walking out of the.
They must be dead by now. Destroy what's left. And the doors open, and TC-13 walks out, and then just. They just flip out and they just chop in wood. It's awesome.
All right. Well then. There's the Darth Doggy right there. Just in time for Jarvi to talk about The Force Awakens.
Well, The Force Awakens, that's a Star Wars movie that I was the most hyped about. This was in 2015. I remember when I first got the news that Disney acquired Star Wars. I was the happiest person on the planet when I heard that it was Disney, because I was so sure that Disney was the right home for Star Wars. Later now, well, we did an episode on prequels versus sequels. I suggest you go watch that one. But The Force Awakens for me, well, you guys already talked about a lot of the stuff, but it was Finn's movie for sure, and I was so sure that Finn was going to be the Jedi. And when we finally found out that it was Rey, I don't know, it's sort of, I'm talking about the negative, but I was so hell-bent on him being a Jedi. I don't know why. So when they flipped that, I was so sure that Finn is going to get his arc eventually when he also is Force sensitive, which we almost got in The Rise of Skywalker. That was never resolved, I feel like.
It was off-scene, by the way. I don't know if you ever guys heard that, but J.J. Abrams confirmed that Finn was Force sensitive, and that's what he was going to tell Rey. Not tell Rey that he loved her, but that he was Force sensitive.
Yeah, that makes so much sense.
But either way.
And so I just want to talk about some really, like, I feel like everything you said, I wanna echo, but the first scene in the movie when we see Kylo for the first time, the new music that's pretty much like Vader's music that's done for Kylo, that dun 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 dun. And the first thing he does is he catches the blaster bolt. That cool. Is so friggin' cool. He holds the freaking blaster bolt for the entire scene pretty much, and when they're wrapped up, it sort of just blasts in there. Everyone keeps talking how they don't think that Kylo was a badass and he was sort of like a whiny brat. For me, that was never the case. I was totally on board with him being the baddie, and well, the best version of Kylo was though in The Rise of Skywalker. And General Hux, we have to go back to General. This was the best movie where General Hux got to be his full evil self. The speech that he gives on Starkiller Base is one of the more entertaining moments in that movie. I can't get enough of it. It's so evil. It's so funny.
It's over the top. It's very over the top.
It is, but it works. I don't know why, but it just works for me. And the biggest thing in The Force Awakens is Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford in The Force Awakens, I was so afraid that he was going to be dialing, just like phoning it in. But he was Han. From the first scene he was on screen, he was Han Solo. There wasn't a minute that felt like he wasn't fully dialed in.
I agree with that. Okay, so if that's good, we'll move on to Return of the Jedi for me and Billy. I will say that this was when I was a kid. This was my favorite film, my favorite Star Wars film, their whole original trilogy. It's only when as I got to be an adult that I started liking more of the other ones. But Return of the Jedi, I get the problems it does have. There are some. Han is a little less cool, per se, he's a little more slapsticky. But it didn't bother me as a kid, but I got it where that's why I slide down a little bit. But I will say the positive note that this movie has my favorite sequence in all of Star Wars, hands down. The throne room battle between Luke and Vader, from the moment when Luke is hiding and Vader taunts him out. Luke gets all dark-sidey for a moment, but then stops. And you have Luke saying, I'm a Jedi like my father before me. Palpatine's will be a Jedi. And then the Return of the Jedi, which is what's named the name of the film. A lot of people say, Return of the Jedi is Luke becoming. No, it's not Luke becoming a Jedi. It's the return of the Jedi, Anakin. And that moment where you have Vader going back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's a blank mask. And I know this is me putting things on the blank mask, but I saw so much emotion and so much acting from that blank slated mask that I just still 40 years later, nearly 40 years later, every time I see that scene, my hair stand up and I'm like watching like in depth. And when Vader finally chooses to help Luke in turn, and that theme, that John Williams music sweeps in, that's fucking Star Wars to me, guys. That's fucking Star Wars. Unfortunately, the beginning part is not quite as good, so it's not as consistent of a movie. It's a little more toy driven, but that scene alone is amazingly Star Wars to me. So that's where I am with Return of the Jedi. Billy?
So Return of the Jedi. So I feel like if you a lot of people are either they're fans of either Luke or Han, and they see themselves in one or the other. You're either Team Luke or Team Han, whatever. And if you like Luke Skywalker, then you like Return of the Jedi more than a lot of the other movies. And if you like Han Solo more, then you tend to like some of the other movies more than Return of the Jedi. That's why I slot Return of the Jedi number 4, because I was never the big Luke fan. Luke wasn't my guy. But honestly, for me, the opening scene of Return of the Jedi, when he walks into Jabba's palace and he is in all black, looking like the most badass dude you've ever seen, and he is like a Jedi in the full command of his powers, using the Force to manipulate people, getting what he wants, and then, obviously his what, like Matt said, what was his plan? He didn't really have a plan, but still the Rancor was really cool looking.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of cool, a cool little fight. I like the little fight at the Sarlacc pit where everything's just kind of going haywire, and you get Leia killing Jabba with her slave chain, which I thought was really funny and really cool. Boba Fett dying so quickly was why, or did he die? We don't know. Boba Fett falling into the Sarlacc pit, was what in the world? And then also we get Luke giving himself up so that he could try to go to turn his father back to the light side of the Force. And you get Palpatine at his most manipulative and his evilest. Like your friends, you can't. That whole like his.
I'm afraid the deflector shield will be quite operational once you come to right.
Good. Like,
He's so weird.
that whole thing. I love Han and Leia interaction in the forest, like when they're trying to put the deflector shield down.
And Han cops a feel on Leia during the.
You know,
God. All right,
he
Ralph.
was feeling her blaster. That's what he was feeling her blaster. That's what he was. And then I like Lando piloting the Millennium Falcon. That was really cool. Like, it's so. I mean, it's Return of the Jedi. It's cool from start to finish. I don't like Ewoks, but you know, I was never. It's funny because I watched this when I was 9, and there's always like a rule that like if you were a kid when you saw the Ewoks, you liked the Ewoks. But apparently, I was never a kid because all the kids stuff I'm always like, oh, whatever. Like,
Statement.
it's cool. Like, I just don't like the fact that like I like the Ewoks as the Ewoks, and I think the Ewoks are fine. I don't like the fact that they're like taking down like Imperial walkers and like with like sticks and like I'm like, this is what? No.
Study Vietnam. It makes a lot more sense if you know the Vietnam War. A giant military operation goes in with more military tech and gets their ass kicked.
Vietnam War. Because the Vietnam War is all about hit and run and takes over and knowing the terrain more than your opponent. This is a battle that takes place in a very small area. As soon as the Ewoks show themselves, they should have just carpet bombed them, and that battle would have been over. Just like the U.S. did in Vietnam several times.
All right. Well, okay.
I hate that reference to Vietnam. It's nothing like Vietnam.
Well, it is what Lucas was going for. He's trying to go for the guerrilla warfare aspect of it.
But that he doesn't do guerrilla warfare.
I
He like come out of hiding,
Ewok warfare.
and then it's like a stand-up fight.
teddy bear warfare instead of gorillas, right?
Actually, not really. It's not really stand up because the stormtroopers running around and then like the Ewoks will like swing in and they'll run away and they'll use like the logs and everything. It's not as stand up as people think. The Ewoks never go like fist to cuff with the stormtroopers. They usually do
But they're not
throw the
hitting
sticks
running
and the
like,
rocks and then
over
they run.
thousands of miles.
They're flying over. They're dropping the rocks. It's really not.
It's in a small area. It's not like
It's
not
in a giant forest planet. How is that small or moon?
Where does the fight takes place over the entire giant forest planet?
We actually never. It's not like we do a giant pullback shot to see where it is.
The fight takes place around where the
Bunker.
The bunker is. That's where the fight takes place.
Well, it takes place around the shield generator, which we don't know actually how far away the shield generator is from the bunker. It could be very far.
We're getting heated.
With the Ewoks in Belford. All right.
Well, that's
right. You just don't like it because you ranked it at number 12 or wherever.
It was number 9. Thanks very much.
Well, on that note, let's move forward. We'll get to number 3. Number 3 on our list now. This is one of the toughest ones for me. I had this at number 2 for a long time, but now it's number 3. I'm going to go with, this is where I put A New Hope.
You guys are ridiculous with these freaking levels. I can't, just so you know, I can't be, my name cannot be put on this list when we finally get this. Because Revenge of the Sith is going to be in like the top 4. And it's going to be ridiculous.
We'll get there. Billy, what do you got for your number 3?
I have The Last Jedi. That's what I have at number 3.
Ooh, I like that.
I like that. That's very different from us, and that's great. Kearns, what do you got?
I have Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
That's right. You hadn't done Rogue One yet. That's
I
right.
love this.
I like it.
And Jarvi.
Well, here it comes. Empire Strikes Back.
Wow.
Number 3. Top 3. Top 3.
Okay. No,
That's
very interesting.
I mean, you put Star Wars at 6, so I guess nothing should really shock me at this point.
All right. A New Hope. New Hope, I will actually say what Richard said, even though we put it at number 6. It is a flawless film to me. I mean, even the flaws work to its benefit. Like the stormtrooper hitting its head, it makes it more endearing. The fact that exactly. The fact that the creatures, especially the original edition, they were all kind of a little puppety looking, a little fake looking, still made me laugh and love the whole thing. It's a perfect adventure film. It's a perfect story of Joseph Campbell's mythic story. It's Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers in today's world. It's there's nothing wrong with this movie in any way, shape, or form. Some people knock the beginning as being a little slow. Maybe I never saw that. I saw Vader come in, and I was immediately like, "Holy shit, this is sweet." To meet Luke when I was a kid, I was Team Luke, which is probably why I was a Jedi Return of the Jedi fan. To your point, Billy, for the longest time, I did eventually slip over to when I got a little older. I became more of a Han fan because I was trying to be cool and I wanted to be cool like Han, and Han is fucking cool. But every character works. There's no character that doesn't work. From Peter Cushing, Carrie Fisher, Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca, Alec Guinness as Obi-Wan. The whole gamut is just. I can't say anything except for this is the film that I will say it. This is the film that has changed film more than any other film in history. Hands down, that's my opinion on that. I think that it's inspired so much. Box office blockbusters are I mean, I know Jaws came out first. I know that's something that's a summer blockbuster as well, but this is the one that really solidified and made sci-fi cool eventually. I think MCU owes a lot to Star Wars for the same reason.
Jaws created the blockbuster. Star Wars defined it.
That's exactly what it is. Jaws the first, but really defined it and made it. There's nothing I can say more about this film than it's one of the most flawless films I've seen. It's just done so much. And George Lucas, I bow at your altar. With that being said, I almost want to hear Jarvi's take on Empire Strikes Back next, because that's when I want to get out of the way.
My reasoning's pretty similar to A New Hope. There isn't. I could never catch the movie if I wanted to knock it down. Just that the upper two have more effect on me. But The Empire Strikes Back is. I'm sorry. Well, it has one of the most. It has some of the pretty much all of the most iconic moments that the results of the I'm your father and stuff like that. And it's still, every time you rewatch it, it still affects you like you're watching it for the first time. The moments never get old. And I gotta say, it has the best opening in a Star Wars movie ever. The Hoth scene and the battle is that was the first time when I saw Darth Vader, because I have a story about the first time when I saw Star Wars. I'll discuss it in the next one. But the first time I saw Darth Vader is when he walks into the halls of Hoth, when the icy corridor is when he comes in, and that's that moment still. And the opening crawl, I don't know, this I feel like this movie would easily be number one, because I think it's a better movie than my 2 and 1, but the 2 and 1 have more affecting moments for me.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, Maddie, why don't you go with your Rogue One?
Yeah. So for a series of films, since its first entry called Star Wars, this is the first true war film we ever got. I think that's what I really like about it. I like the fact that it expands the galaxy. It takes something that was always a joke and a blot on Star Wars, which is, the Death Star. Why would they build it with a giant hole to blow it up? It tells you why. It gives you, and the reason makes all the sense in the world. I guess I'm strange in that I connected with the human characters. Most people I hear, they talk about how they only connected with the droid. And that's fine. I liked the characters and I connected with them, and I liked that little band that they formed. Love Krennic. Yeah, Krennic's one of my favorite Star Wars villains. I've always described him as he's the Dr. Frankenstein of the Star Wars universe, building this great monster of death that he doesn't even understand, and then having it ultimately be his downfall is great. I love Tarkin the movie. I like Krennic and Tarkin's back and forth. Like, you like Tarkin more in New Hope when you see he's really shitty to Krennic, because Krennic spent all this time building this thing, and then Tarkin just comes in and takes it over. And I think, it's the war aspect that I love. Because all the other Star Wars movies were always following, either the people with the Force or the people who are friends with the Force and the laser swords. Here it's it is. I mean, yes, we do get Chariot and Baze, but they aren't outwardly using the Force here. It's here we have just the boots on the ground troops the hell that they go through fighting the stormtroopers. The Empire is scary in this movie, like they were scary in Empire Strikes Back. Like that stuff on Scarif. You are scared for those troopers when those doors open and that giant group of stormtroopers come out. And I think the biggest thing is I love this film. It's message of hope and this message of like we can't give up. You know, there's so many different, you know, make 10 men feel like 100, but the best is the very end when they transmit the plans and Jin goes, "Do you think anyone's listening?" Cassian sort of looks off and goes, "I think so." And I saw someone made this great image of that moment, and they had Leia holding the plans and Luke looking at the twin sons, and then Cassian says, "I think so." And it's just, it just feels, this movie is a lot of the things I love about Star Wars. That sense of heroes willing to sacrifice their lives for a greater purpose, hope in the face of no hope, and it just wrapped it up in this great war epic that we really never got from Star Wars before. Even in Clone Wars and all this stuff, like this was the first time, and I like the fact that it ends with all of our main characters dead. Like I thought that was such a ballsy choice, but it was the right choice to make.
Can I interject a real thing? You said something that really spoke to me. You related to the human characters a lot. For me, it was Cassian's moment when he executed his informant on the street.
Yeah.
I've always been someone who enjoys characters who can make the tough choices without them being like too, you know, I don't know, family friendly or sort of this. I respect the people who can make. It was a very tough choice.
I think I like this movie too because I'm a World War II nut, and this movie very World War II, and that was real spy stuff during the World Wars. Was you sometimes had to get your information, and then you could not be seen or heard, so they went down. Like there are tons of stories about that, and that's why I liked that we started off with that. It's like, no, that's what a spy would do. Like you would like to think that he would help his buddy up, but he's like, nope, I can't get kidnapped. You got to go down. This is, you know, the ends will justify the means in this sense. And that, just talking about Cassian, just one more thing. That moment between him and Jin with the, we don't all get to pick when or where we want to care about something. I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. You're like, yes, there have been people since the Jedi Purge who have been living this hell of fighting in this rebellion. Like, and it was not separatist. Sunshine and rainbows.
The fact that he was a separatist actually added even more to it.
And then, of course, just Bail Organa this last scene. You're so sad when he says he's going back to Alderaan. You're like, no, stay. And then just your Jedi friend. Like, the movie just, it's so cool to watch it, and then watch A New Hope. And A New Hope is kind of, I like it more now because, like, you have all that stuff that happened before, and it, so.
It's the best shot Star Wars movie, in my opinion.
Might be. Might be.
All right, Billy, tell us about The Last Jedi, why it's so high for you compared to others.
This is the best shot Star Wars movie as a standalone movie. This is the movie that you could take out of the Star Wars, like you take off all the Star Wars, you take off all the icing, right? You take off all the Star Wars things. This is the best movie of any of the movies. It's the best shot, it's the best directed, it's the best written, everything in it makes sense. Like, even the things that people say don't make sense, like, well, why would they do that? Like, because they're doing anything they possibly can because they have no control over anything else. That's a very realistic thing to do. Like, why would he do this? He's like, because he has no control. That's what that movie's all about, is having no control over for a series of 9 movies that are all about, to a certain degree, destiny, and like, you're destined to do this, you're destined for this, you're destined to be a Jedi, you're destined for, to save the world, to save the Empire, to save the universe. This is a movie about people who don't have destiny, and they're just trying to do something to, like, exist in the universe, which I think a lot of people, when they think, like, can relate to. It's about people having no control over what's going on and just trying to have control over something.
Maybe we lost Billy's mic.
Yeah. No, he's actually, it's a bit lagging for him, so his video is behind of the audio.
That's what
He's still here. He's still here.
It's so funny. I just turned my head to move something, and then I didn't see that.
Okay,
so
now we did lose him.
Done talking.
Okay, let's try. All right, we're having him reset. Well, he actually brings up some good points. When he comes back, hopefully come back stronger than ever. The Jedi. Okay, here he comes. But I like what he was saying. I agree with him that this might be the best shot film. I happen to agree. All right, Billy, you back? Are we good?
Yeah. Where did you lose me at?
Okay.
No, pretty much what you said.
You heard everything you said, and like the very end.
Okay. So the other thing with this movie is that I watched this movie 4 times in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
None of my own choice. Literally, it was other people who say, "We're going to see this movie. You're going with us." And I'm like, "Okay." And the first time I watched it, I did not like this movie at all. I hated it, and it's because of Canto Bight. Like literally, that scene just took me completely out of the movie. Like I was like, "What is the purpose of this? Why?" And then on like the 3rd and 4th viewing, when I like knew Canto Bight was coming and I was like accepted of it, like I was like, all right, this is gonna happen. Canto Bight's actually cool because you get to see all of these little things going on. It's kind of like it reminds me of like the end of Ready Player One, where they're just vomiting 80 references like over and over again on you. That's like Canto Bight. They're like it's just an overload of like visuals like that you like. Things are just happening. Things are happening in the background that you don't even realize are happening. Like, and like, so when I watched it like the 4th time, like you get the note, like I was like, I got to watch something that what haven't I seen before? And you see all these little things. Some of the humor at the beginning it's never good. Like I think they make a "your mom" joke or something like that at the beginning.
Yeah, they do. Oh no.
What is like? Who would ever do like that's not even good if this was like a Beverly Hills Cop movie. Like what this is just like that's really the only thing that's to this day I'm still like, this is just dumb. All the little kids being force sensitive I was fine with. I'm like, because it never made sense to me that there are only like 3 people in the universe who can use the Force. Even if you try to kill every Jedi ever, like genetically you're still gonna have genes of like to be able to use the Force. There's gonna be some midichlorians that are swirling around in somebody's gene pool. And
agreed.
Also the throne room fight scene is fantastic. Some people don't like the fact that they killed Snoke so soon. I didn't care because I didn't care about Snoke. Like we didn't know who Snoke was. Like, or I didn't know who Snoke was. Like maybe he's off screen or in other books or something. Apparently there's books. People read books. I don't know. Maybe he's in other things. Maybe there's some comic book Snoke stuff. But as far as the movies go, we didn't even know who he was. So, and also, we also got that resolved in The Rise of Skywalker, where Kylo Ren just wants to get rid of everybody because he wants to be the power in the universe. So that killing Snoke makes more sense now.
Great.
The Rise of Skywalker, or like Rise of Skywalker made Last Jedi better, even though some people say like that JJ was like undercutting Rian Johnson, but I thought it like all the stuff he was trying to undercut just made me appreciate it more. The one thing I wish would have happened, and this isn't because I liked the character of Rose, I thought she brought something different to the movie. I thought she should have sacrificed herself to save Finn, because that would have been an excellent resolution of her storyline, and it also would have given Finn something to like. Finn has no motivation. That's one of the things of like, what is Finn's motivation for doing anything? Yeah. He doesn't have it. That would have given him some motivation to do things in these movies.
Right.
But yeah, I love The Last Jedi. I think it's great.
Fair enough.
It's gotten better on rewatch. So maybe I just need to go back and rewatch some movies. Like maybe I'll rewatch Revenge of the Sith 50 times and I'll figure it out. That's probably a segue.
There you go. Well, speaking of which, let's go to number 2. Number two of all time for me. My runner-up. And this is where I slot Revenge of the Sith.
Yes.
Shocking.
I know there is no way you could ever have it at number 1, so this is a big win.
Oh, there's a way. There's a way.
Number 2 for you, Billy?
Number 2 is A New Hope.
Okay. Kearns.
Wrath of Khan. Oh, A New Hope.
Okay, and Jarvi.
Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
Oh my God. Are
Now,
you kidding me?
This is actually the one that switches for me as it goes along. Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi. I'm a fan of the third in the trilogy, usually the movies that wrap things up. I know in this case I rated The Force Awakens higher than The Rise of Skywalker, but usually, like, if you go Return of the King, Revenge of the Sith, Return of the Jedi. So what Paul said that his most favorite Star Wars moment, the Luke and Vader fight. There's a story that you, Kearns, have probably heard. It's how I got introduced to Star Wars for the first time in my life. This was back when I was 5 years old. It was middle of the night. I was just sleeping. My father burst through the door, woke me up in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m. or something. Great parenting. Said, really cool scene on, come watch quick. I was like, what's going on? All right, I'm coming. She's like super like confused, and I'm in front of the television, and I'm just seeing a green and a red stick clashing. Something's going on. I'm like, no idea what's happening. Looks freaking cool, and I want to see more. And that's the moment when I started to get interested. I watched all of the original trilogy movies. I wasn't that big of a fan yet, but I knew I loved the lightsaber battles. So this is where the love for prequels came in, the age that I actually started consuming movies and understanding movies and loving the lightsaber battles. But we're talking about Return of the Jedi. One of the greatest moments and one of my favorite lines in Star Wars is that I'm a Jedi like my father before me. That's something that makes the entire movie for me. And you talked about when Luke goes into Jabba's palace, the way he talks. You said that he has no plan, but the way he talks, he's so confident of his powers, of himself. He knows he's a Jedi now, and just the way he speaks and walks in, everything oozes confidence, and him being a powerful Jedi now.
Oh, he has confidence. He just has no real smart plan to back it up.
But it works. It works.
It does work.
And I also kind of like the fact that we were talking about ancillary villains with DiNuzzo a few episodes ago, and we talked about Jabba the Hutt. And Jabba is a freaking powerful villain. He resists Luke's mind trick. So that's something in itself. People have been talking about how can this slug be this all-powerful mob boss, but he's got some moves.
Got some moves.
I just hate the design change they had, guys. I liked the one from the Marvel comics where he was just like some random alien dude with like a weird mustache. George Lucas and his special editions again, just changing shit.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my.
But yeah, this wraps up this is the best wrap up of it's not the best because we haven't talked about my number one yet, but this movie pretty much, as I said, this changes with the first one. It was my first for a while, but now that's changed and we'll get to it.
Okay. Billy, why don't you go on A New Hope for me?
A New Hope is, again, it's like I said earlier, you're either Team Luke or you're Team Han. And A New Hope was like, that's where you realize that Han's like the coolest person in like the Star Wars universe. Like he shoots the bounty hunter. I don't care if he shot first, second, third, or fourth. He shoots Greedo, kills Greedo. That like flips the money to the bartender, like for the mess, like him chasing the stormtroopers through the hallways, and then there's like a bunch of stormtroopers, so he runs back away. Look, we're gonna have company. It's amazing. Like this is like the most Han movie. Like boring conversation anyway. Like I love like everything about this is like she's rich. How rich? Like that's so good. Like there's no mystical force like controlling my destiny. Oh, I love it so much. Like.
Good against one thing. Good against living.
Is Han for me.
I gotta actually just interject real quick and say I know I said my favorite moment was Return of the Jedi. This is my second favorite moment was actually in this film when Han returns and Han comes back and saves the day. That Yahoo! doing?
Yeah, what was that on Take Three's list? Like number 7 or something, Billy?
Something
Freaking.
All right, so
I don't
Kearns,
even want to talk about that. That was ridiculous.
Kearns, you hit me with your New Hope.
We'll talk about New Hope. First thing I want to say is this podcast is now longer than the runtime of A New Hope, so we've done something wrong, guys. New Hope, it's 2 hours and 7 minutes.
And then Drew might not be happy with us here, but that's
No.
okay. We'll a lot for forgiveness.
Guys, they put all 4 of us on a podcast talking about Star Wars. What did you think? Yeah, so A New Hope. Going back to this watch along, technically, of Star Wars with Billy and Paul at the last New York event. This movie came on. Billy said something that I never thought, but it's so true. Where he was like, it was the scene when it's R2 and 3PO walking in the desert, and he just turns to me and goes, "Every movie in this scene is classic." I'm like, yeah, it really is. Like every scene you remember. There's not a scene to where if you showed someone a screenshot, they go, "Oh, I don't remember that scene." Like everyone remembers. You show them the trash compactor, they go, "Oh yeah, I remember that." Like as silly as that sounds for a movie to be so ingrained in not pop culture in we got to reference every scene every time, but just in consciousness is not easy to do. That's not an easy thing to do, particularly for a movie from a director who had one failed project and one good project and was making a movie that everyone was going, this movie's not going to work. The crew was like, what the hell are we doing? The cast was drinking and smoking and ad-libbing because they just had to get through it. The studio was Al and I, we're going to shut this movie down because what the hell is Lucas doing? George Lucas had a panic attack and ended up in the hospital because of this movie. And then for it to come out and be not just as good as it is, be as just this, even though it's not my number 1, I think A New Hope, just like what I just talked about with Rogue One, it has everything I love about Star Wars. It has that, to quote another sci-fi movie, that never give up, never surrender sort of notion of even characters like Han, who you're annoyed at him when he leaves. And then you're so happy when he comes back because you're like, yes, that's who you're supposed to be. Luke, this farm boy who just wants adventure and then finds it and finds joining the rebellion, and learning that his father was a Jedi and following his footsteps, that there's a greater purpose he was supposed to serve than being a moisture farmer. Ben Kenobi sacrificing his life so that the other heroes can escape. This whole sense of, for as small scale as the story is, there's this, as Obi-Wan says, you've taken your first step to a larger world. There's this larger world. But this movie is so complete and so perfect and so wonderful. And it's a movie that I can't not smile when I get to the end with that medal ceremony. I can't not smile. And it's not just because the music is great and because all the other characters smile. It's because the 2 hours and 5 minutes you've spent with these characters and in this universe, you just are so happy that through everything they've been through, they won. And no matter how many additions come out, no matter how many McClunkies are added, the base story of this movie can never be screwed with, because it took its inspiration from classic stories, from King Arthur to Robin Hood to spaghetti westerns, and created this new world that, although it's new, it feels so familiar to everyone. Even kids growing up now can watch this movie. And it's so classic. And it's a wonderful, wonderful movie.
Agreed in every aspect there. So I will hit my number 2 now. And the reason why I did that is because it's going to connect with Jarvi's number 1. It slaps, yo. Revenge of the Sith. The reason why I love this so much is because it comes... That's really turn to leave.
Oh, man.
Why do I love this film like I do? I can't even fully explain it, but I'll tell you, I'll try. It has the best story, I think, of the whole thing. It's the typical moment of the archetypal moment of the saga. It's the fall of Anakin Skywalker, the birth of Darth Vader. Yes, I know the dialogue's not the greatest at times, but there's so much to it that's so beautiful. This is my favorite John Williams score. I love every aspect. There's so many dark moments, so many happy moments, so many cues. This is Ewan McGregor at his finest in Obi-Wan. This has my second favorite, I should say, lightsaber battle, Anakin Obi-Wan, where they worked their asses off for months to make this beautiful choreographed, speed-driven fight. To the point where some people complained about it, that it was too fast, that they couldn't see it. I'm like, that's what makes it so great. Two Jedi at the peak of their powers who know each other so well. Wow. From Order 66 on, I am engrossed entirely. Before that, I'm still in there. I love the space battle. I love everything else. I love Grievous versus Obi-Wan. But that Order 66 moment just hits me like no other. The death of the Jedi. It's like the death of an era. And yet, despite all that seriousness, what is almost as important is just the beamability and the quotes and the fun and the over-the-top. Ian McDiarmid as Palpatine is just legendary, and I can quote him all day. No, you will die. Do it. And his cackling, like Yoda's fall over the place. He's like, ah! My wife, Kim, and I actually joke every time after she's letting his Mace Windu. He almost has it's almost like a sexual orgasmic feeling. He's like,
Okay, so you got to talk about the Jimmy Smits moment as well.
I should. I'm about to ruin Revenge of the Sith even further.
Wait your turn, Jarvi. You get it at your number one.
I remember this is something I actually ruined just a little bit for Richard at this point. There's a weird moment in this movie. During the end part.
What weird moment in this movie?
This is weird and weird. The ending sequence where Bail Organa, Obi-Wan, and Yoda are sitting around the table and discussing what they're going to do with Luke and Leia. Bail has this moment where he's like looking off in the distance and he's like, "We'll take the girl. We always loved the baby girl. She'll be loved." And this real, like, creepy pedophile like look in his eyes.
It's a millisecond.
It's a millisecond of like a rolling of his tongue, and all of a sudden it's almost like he gets caught. She'll be loved. And to this day, Kim and I laugh entirely too hard at it, and I know that's not what you want in a home family movie, but regardless, it's all part of the thing. What I love about it, because I love every aspect of the film.
It's because he didn't want to really outstate to Obi-Wan and Yoda that he's sterile. That's why they could never have a girl. Okay?
Couldn't be sure. We'll go into that. That's
couldn't do it. He didn't want to say it outwardly, so he was like, "Oh shit, she's gonna be loved. There's no reason. We just never had time because being a senator takes a lot of time." Just don't. Hey, did you guys see the game last night?
That's exactly what it is.
The Bears, right? Hell of a team.
We lost Billy.
We did lose Billy. That's okay. We lost Billy.
I mean, like,
I'm moving Revenge of the Sith to number 11.
The only part of the Sith that I wish happened more was that one of the scenes was cut. I wanted to see. There's a scene that was written that Qui-Gon was going to speak to Yoda, and that would have just tied it up.
Well, the scene's in there. They just didn't put its dialogue. That scene when Yoda has his eyes closed and Bail tells. I wish they would have had that in there.
Just look how much fun you're having discussing this movie. How can this not be number one?
That's what it is. It's a lot of fun. It's got important, serious moments in the saga.
It's so much fun. A hero gets his arm and legs chopped off and left to burn by his brother.
It's fun.
How's that not fun? It's like Chuck E. Cheese, man.
I'm
go ahead. You know
back.
We all know what our number ones are, obviously, because there's only one film left. Obviously, the three of us, besides Jarvi, are going with Empire Strikes Back. So why don't we go with Richard, and why don't you take it from me?
Just keep talking. You go. It's just and what Kearns just said. It's a fun movie, but we get like Anakin's downfall. It's also the most emotional Star Wars movie ever made. It's got all the fun moments. It's got the silly moments, and until Order 66 happens, it's the most heartbreaking Star Wars movie. And just like you said, when Order 66 happens, everything goes down. The way Yoda reacts, the way he falls to his cane falls down, that's exactly how everyone is feeling at that moment, and even stronger than that. And the Obi-Wan versus Anakin fight. I can't talk enough about it. People have been talking that the Rise of Skywalker finally, okay, we've gotten that before, that the Force powers were finally integrated into the fighting. I loved when Anakin and Obi-Wan they just swing their lightsaber, not even clashing, and just go like the Force push moment. That is
silly. It was fun.
There's so many things that I'm just forgetting, but I think Kearns, you said it. It's got one of the better endings of a Star Wars movie, and people say that it's a sad ending. For me, it's very bittersweet. But at the very end, exactly the moment when Lars and Prue, that's right, are holding Luke. That's one of the most hopeful moments in the entire saga, I feel like, because we've gotten all that loss just before, but we're still ending this on a very positive note.
I agree.
And the fact about Hayden Christensen, people hating on him in Attack of the Clones, I feel like the first time we see him in the space battle with Obi-Wan, he's got the longer hair. You can feel he's taken some of the criticism. He's toned down the whininess. He's more grown up. He's more powerful, and he's more balanced. So I love everything about him when he's on the light side, when he's a Jedi. Everything is so.
He evolved as a character like that. Anakin was supposed to be, because when he was an apprentice, he always thought he was better than he actually was. He felt like he was being held back. But we've now spent a span of time. There's been an entire war where he's become a commander and a general. He's going to age up and grow into the Jedi Knight that he is in that movie. It's called arcs, people. So George Lucas knows how to do them if you just, pay attention and don't just spout Plinkett stuff.
And that's what Obi-Wan says. One of my favorite moments when they're just having conversations is Obi-Wan and Anakin talking. Obi-Wan says to him, "You've become a far greater Jedi than I have ever hoped to be, but be patient." That was the final conversation between them before they went.
And my favorite part of that scene is that it literally ends with foreshadowing, because Obi-Wan is in the light and Anakin's in the dark.
And also Mace Windu.
Yeah, George Lucas is a terrible director. He doesn't understand anything, right?
Right. You know what I want to throw in there? By the way, the other sequence I love too, when Obi-Wan goes to Padme and tells him,
one of my favorite scenes,
and when trying to get that information out of her, and it's heartbreaking.
When she realizes what's happening, she says, "You're gonna kill him." And he goes, "You've become a very great threat." And then at the end, when he goes, Anakin's the father, isn't he? I'm so sorry.
So sorry.
Oh God! Also, how can we got the opera house scene? We can't not talk about how fucking amazing that scene is, and that is when Palpatine has been for the last couple of years. He's been doing this with the fishing reel with Anakin. That's when he just yanks him, and he's on his side. Absolutely. Once he tells that story, and it's the music. God.
It's so cool. He talks about cheating death, and finally in The Rise of Skywalker, people keep talking, everything that happened in the OT kind of feels pointless because he's back. That's exactly what he's talking about, to cheat death. There's ways of the Sith where he can cheat death and bring him back. Because he was back as, he wasn't a Force ghost. He was actually in his body. He was back in The Rise of Skywalker.
I don't remember the exact line, but it's... dark side of the Force is
pathway to many abilities. Some
consider to be unnatural. Oh, you mean kind of like coming back from the dead? Yeah, that's a bit unnatural, isn't it?
So that is Revenge of the Sith. It slaps. That's where we're going with. So now we'll move on to a subject where Billy will be back in the conversation, because he's actually does like this movie.
I sat here for 2 hours and 23 minutes for you to have Revenge of the Sith as your number one movie, and you to have it as your number two movie.
You're welcome.
Where am I? What am I doing here? The fact that anybody does not have Empire Strikes Back, I would have accepted Return of the Jedi as your number one, but for it to be not Empire Strikes Back, Empire Strikes Back is Star Wars. That's the Star Wars movie. It's the best movie. It has the best sequences, the characters are now fully fleshed. We know who they are. We know their motivations. Everything on Hoth is that's the best battle scene in any Star Wars movie. I don't care what you say. The Hoth battle scene is fantastic. We also get Luke, getting the Abominable Snowman still getting work. I like to see that, sweet. Like everything. I mean, also all of the stuff that gets resolved in Return of the Jedi that Jarvi loves, all of like the winning in Return of the Jedi, the none of that happens without being at the lowest point where we are at the end of Empire Strikes Back. Han Solo might be dead, is definitely in carbonite. Luke is missing a hand, has just found out that his father is the evilest person, second evilest person in the universe.
And that Ben Kenobi lied to him.
Yeah, Ben Kenobi lied to the one person he thought he could trust.
The
broke
one
that
connection he had to his father.
What he told him was
to him
true
about who his father was
from a certain point of view.
Okay.
So
you
that's
guys want to talk about retconning the sequels? Can we talk about that line?
That's the one thing I think is also kind of missing from The Last Jedi is that we never got to like that point. Like that's the point where we should have been. I felt like at The Last Jedi was that we were at the lowest point. We didn't get to the lowest point really until almost the end of Rise of Skywalker in the new ones. We were at our lowest point at the end of Empire Strikes Back.
Mm-hmm.
The good guys were not going to win. We were like, there's no way they're going to win. They can't win. How could they possibly? Every time they try to win, they get beat down.
Absolutely.
And that sets up everything that's the yay we won and Return of the Jedi.
I will just say this point blank out. This is my favorite movie of all time.
Of any
movie, not Star Wars. This is the one.
Revenge of the Sith is my number 2 of all time. Not kidding.
That's great. That's awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. But Empire Strikes Back to me is exactly what Billy has said. It was the first time. I mean, maybe it's because I'm a kid. I mean, because I was a kid growing up. It was the first movie I ever saw in the movie theater. I don't remember much of it because I was young. All I really remember from my first viewing was being scared shitless of Yoda when he's like, "Oh, you will be. You will be." That's scared the shit out of me.
God, stranger danger, Luke.
I was like, "Oh God, Luke, run. Run, Luke, run." I know it's a movie, but I love the aspect that this is the first time when I finally saw a story where the bad guys won. The end of the film, like you said, we're at the lowest point. No, there's no happy ending here. There's the maybe hope that Lando and Chewie are going to go find Han, but Luke just got his ass kicked. He lost his hope. He lost his belief in his father figure. He lost his actual father. His father's Space Hitler, basically, and he's got nothing. he's got nothing to cling on to at this point. And it's like that's the end of the movie. Wow. It's got some great visuals. Again, the Hoth battle is in there, and that is a phenomenal battle. You have Cloud City, some great visuals there. You have the smoothest motherfucker in the planet, Lando Calrissian, coming in. Lando Calrissian.
Cool 45.
Got Han and the Falcon, and the Broken Falcon. Those are some of my best ones. And I love the context of Han and Lando, like both, like when the hyperdrive fails. It's not my fault. They both get that moment. It's not my fault.
They told me they fixed it.
And then one of my favorite fist pump moments is everybody's going to, I should say, everybody's going to talk about the I'm your father moment, which is, of course, phenomenal. It's almost to the point where you don't have to talk about it because it's that well ingrained. But one of my favorite fist pump moments the whole movie is when you discover that Leia, before you discover that Leia is a Skywalker, that Leia is Luke's sister, Leia has the Force. Luke reaches out to her. She has that moment and the Force theme plays, and it's just I get chills every time I watch it. Leia turns around and tells Leia to turn around, and Leia's like, wow. It's such a great moment of the saga. And that's the best part of the film is that there's so many of those moments in this film. The whole film is basically moments like that.
Can I just say a few Han moments that are awesome that I forgot to mention?
I love you, I know.
That's one of them. Han using a lightsaber, which I freaking love that he used lightsaber, and the moment he says, "They never even asked me any questions." I love that line.
That moment is so great, and I don't think when you're a kid you understand, but when you get older, you're like,
Mm-hmm.
no, Vader never intended. The whole purpose of that was to torture Han, so because Vader knew Luke would get the visions.
Right.
Like he tortured Han just to get Luke to come to him, and you're like, that is why Vader is like the greatest on-screen villain in that movie. I guess I'll from here.
One last thing. I want to mention.
Oh yeah, sorry.
One thing I do have. I do have one more thing that I did. Like, I am all for. I am Team Lando. So many people get on Lando's case for like betraying Han there. All I gotta say is, what the fuck are you gonna do? Lord Darth Vader's there saying he's taking in your face. Goes, I'm taking Han Solo. I'm taking Princess Leia. You're gonna say no to him? Good fucking luck. But yet he lets Han and Leia go or get taken, and then he works afterwards to get them back anyway. He gets Lobot, he breaks them out. So at the end of the film, Lando is like one of the biggest heroes of the saga at that point.
What people don't realize is that, and again, it's never explicitly said, but like one, Lando was told that only Han was going to be taken. Chewie and Leia were going to be left with him. You also have to realize Vader. The conversation was probably, I'm taking Han Solo. I'm going to murder you and every man, woman, and child on this planet.
If you say
I will
if you
kill them all if you do not let me take this one guy. Of course, Lando, to quote another sci-fi series, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. Yeah, so Lando, like, it's understandable. That is, however, a great moment when he lets Chewie's binders go and Chewie just immediately starts choking him and Leia. Oh yeah, he had no choice. Like, yeah, this is my favorite movie of all time. We're kind of short on time, so I'll quickly just say, Han and Leia are amazing. They're Carrie Fisher. This is my favorite. Leia is in this movie. She has the leadership. She has the spelling. She has everything that makes people love this character. But it's all Luke. Luke is what I love about him. I love Mark Hamill's acting. He's acting with puppets and with insects and with an Alec Guinness that wasn't there. And it's his whole story of believing something and then sort of losing that. And what does that do to a person? He believes that, he can go and help his friends, and then that fails. And he's believed that his father was this great Jedi, only to find out that his father is actually, because we don't know the Emperor, is the most evil thing in the universe, that Ben Kenobi lied to him. And where does that leave you? And this fact that Luke still is a hero. Okay. And I'm really trying to not crap on Last Jedi, but like, that's why his story in Last Jedi I didn't like, because in Empire everything goes wrong for him and he still is gonna find Han, and he's not gonna run, and he's not gonna give up. Again, to the people who love it, but that's the reason why I feel the way I feel about that. It's just Luke's amazing, and also just like the greatest Han Solo moment ever happens in Empire, and it's your tauntaun will freeze before you reach the first marker, then I'll see you in hell. Like, the character who literally said, I don't care about your revolution, I'm in it for the money, literally saying, my friend is going to die on this storm, I don't care if I die, I'm going to go and get him. It's perfect. The movie is perfect.
It is perfect.
Simple.
That's where we'll wrap up. I will quickly go through our unified list because I've been tabulating this whole entire time. Coming in at number 11 for us, not surprisingly, is Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Coming in just after that, just above that, I should say, Solo, A Star Wars Story.
We're following Collider's list at the moment.
We are.
Oh my God.
And guess what's next? The Last Jedi is next on our list. Man. That is where The Last Jedi lives. Number, wow, that's really low.
That's low.
Coming in next, The Rise of Skywalker. That's where that falls.
Yeah.
A little lower. Okay. Coming after that, The Phantom Menace. A lot higher than a lot of people would have thought, possibly.
Not all the Collider's list anymore.
That's true.
Nope.
After that, The Force Awakens, just above The Phantom Menace. Barely.
So what number are we?
11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. That's number 6. Force Awakens is number 6. Number 5, we have, where is it? Rogue One, a Star Wars story at number 5.
I like it. That's my 5.
Number 4, Return of the Jedi.
Okay, could be higher. That's okay,
Billy
though.
Belford is really upset. He's blowing up a gasket here.
This fucking movie's in the top 3.
That's where it is. The top 3 is number 3.
Jesus.
Basically,
All right.
because
I
Belford
can live
was
with that.
so low,
It's because of Billy.
which means
You can live with that?
which means
I
unsurprisingly,
can't.
our top 2. Number 2 is A New Hope, and number 1.
Jarvi tried to sandbag it by putting it at, like, number 5.
He did. He tried, but he failed. And that means the number 1 film of our list, the sporadic council votes. Not surprising to anyone, but I love how he got there. The greatest film of all time, in my estimation, The Empire Strikes Back. That's all the time we have, this, folks. It is now 2.5 hours. I mean, I can't believe we're on 2.5 hours. Come on, because nobody wants to listen to Star Wars for 2.5 hours. It's ridiculous. It's not worth it, right? Maybe. I don't know.
Is it about the runtime of Last Jedi?
It could be. It could be. It could be. And yet here we are. And yet people are going to watch us. So.
Also, if you love The Rise of Skywalker, or not Rise of Skywalker, The Revenge of the Sith, do not send me anything on Twitter. I don't care. All right? Don't value your
Please,
opinion.
please attack him on Twitter
I
with
like
all the
Jarvi's
Sith
opinion on it,
memes.
and Paul's and Matt's.
Bring it on me.
Nobody else.
Bring it on me. Bring it on me. That's what we said. Okay, Maddie, where can we find you on the social media and everything else?
You guys can find me at Kearns_Matthew on Twitter, MattMovies611 on YouTube and WordPress, and the most important place you find me is the YouTube channel Take 3 Productions. I do a lot of stuff over there, but the biggest thing I do is I host a video essay series called Second Look, where I take a bunch of movies that I love that most people don't like, and I talk about the reasons why you should give the film a second or third viewing, maybe, or just revisit the film. I recently just covered Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. In the future, I will be covering Solo Star Wars Story. So if you want to hear more of my in-depth thoughts about that. And also, just to pimp this out, it's old, but my documentary, They're More Than Films, Star Wars Fandom, Paul and Richard were a part of it. Go check that out on the YouTube channel, Matthew Kearns.
Awesome. Darth Billy Belford, where can we find you? Obviously not watching Revenge of the Sith, but where can we find you otherwise?
You can find me at Mr. Billy Belford on Twitter. I swear to God, if you at me about freaking Revenge of the Sith.
I hope they do. I hope they do. Richard, how about you?
Richard-Erik with a K Jarvi on Facebook and Instagram. Go follow Action Industries and watch our other episodes of Class Action. They're way shorter. They're way more segmented, but this was a very special episode. I had so much fun talking Star Wars with you guys.
Me too. I had a great time. This is amazing. It is, again, like we do a weekly show here, Class Action, a lot of different format. But come check it out. It's kind of cool. You go to the last one we did, which was the prequel versus the sequels. It's kind of a cool concept. We basically take a movie, review it, and then we use that review to inspire a battle between two things, a lawsuit where we take 5 categories and we pin them up against each other and come up with the victor, so to speak. And you can also find me on Call to Action, doing Schmodown stuff. We also hopefully a future award-winning podcast, as we say as we go. And besides that, you can also find me running the Team Action Patreon, patreon.com/Team Action. A lot of happy tears there to learn about Schmodown stuff, to learn about the Commanding the Army game we do. A lot of material. It's great fun, and become a general. You won't regret it. That's what I'm saying. That's where to end here. I love you all. I had a great old time. And as we say here in Action Industries, we salute you.
Don't